Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Uzumaki clan leaves his inheritance for Naruto. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Uzumaki Kitsune9 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1 Legacy Reborn. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son of Minato Namikaze, Yondaime Hokage, also known as Yellow Flash, and Kushina Uzumaki, also known as the Red Death or Red Hot-Blooded Habanero. I am also the Jinchuriki of the strongest Biju, Kyuubi no Yoko, the nine-tailed demon fox. My life was not always this great. I was not always the Uzukage of a great nation and great clan of Uzushiogakure, which was once almost annihilated from the elemental nations that I rebuilt from scratch to be the strongest village and nation to ever exist and will ever. I did not always have all these beautiful women by my side that I love equally and unconditionally. I was once called demon or demon brat spawn for something that was beyond my control. I once wonder why they hate me. What did I do to deserve such treatment? The same people I had vowed I was going to protect when I had become a ninja for my village, the same people who my father and mother had died protecting, the same people of the one strongest village in the elemental nations, Konohagakure, village hidden in the leaves, but now as I think about it, none of this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the villagers. These stupid arrogant people will never understand. I wouldn't have been the Uzukage of the strongest nation across the elemental nations. I wouldn't have got beautiful women to love me, and I certainly wouldn't have been the strongest man alive since the Rakuto Senin. All I wanted was to be loved and recognized, to be recognized. I vowed to resurrect my once deceased family, whatever means necessary, through blood, sweat and tears. Not through fleshly or inhumane means, but by words and action. The legacy of the Uzumaki clan must live on. Let me tell you my story of where it all began. This is my legend, this is the legacy of the Uzumaki clan. There, that will teach the demon not to come around us and our family anymore, said one villager. Yay, let's get out of here before the demon-loving Hokage gets here, said another villager. You might be wondering what they are talking about, well it's no other than the village's troublemaker, Naruto Uzumaki, nine-tailed Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. It all started 4 years ago on the same night as this October 9, when the Kyuubi attacked the village hidden in the leaf for no apparent reason. Their greatest Hokage, Minato Namikaze, give his life to seal the demon inside an orphan boy. Said boy being Naruto Uzumaki, lying on the ground beaten, bruised and bleeding heavily and an ally away from prying eyes. Everyone was about to leave when they were suddenly hit by an oppressing wave of kill intent (KI) that stopped them in their tracks. Being civilians that they were, they couldn't move, some black out from too much pressure, while the ninjas that were in the mix tried to get away but were blocked by the Hokage's personal guards. What is the meaning of this? Asked the Hokage angrily. Hokage-sama, we were finishing what the fourth started and repaying that what the demon did to that villager didn't get to finish as a kunai was embedded where his heart lay courtesy of the Hokage. Take these villagers and ninjas to Anko and Ibiki and tell them to have fun and don't hold back, the Sandaime shouted. After a chorus of hi from the Hokage bodyguards, they escorted the prisoners to the Anbu headquarters for Anko and Ibiki to look after them. Hokage-sama, what should we do with Naruto-kun? Asked the only remaining Anbu who was wearing a crow mask. Take him to the hospital and don't leave him, we don't know what else these villagers will do to him while he is unconscious. Hi Hokage-sama, said the crow mask Anbu, and with that he departed to the hospital with an unconscious blonde in his arms. Next morning, damn what hit me? Groaned Naruto as he woke from his sleep. Morning Naruto-kun, how are you this morning? Asked the Hokage, smiling slightly at the boy he came to love as a grandson he never had. Mourned Jiji, I don't know why the villagers hate me, I promise I didn't do them, anything, Naruto said desperately. I believe you, Naruto-kun, just try to ignore them, okay? The smile faded into a frown as he spoke those words. Life was becoming more and more difficult for the young blonde, but the Hokage only hoped he made it through. Do you know why they hate me? Naruto asked, looking up at the old man. Big blue eyes stared inquisitively at the man. Hiruzen shook his head negatively, sorry Naruto, but I don't. Why? Also, why are you not in the orphanage and on the street? He asked with a raised eyebrow. Well Jiji, they threw me out of the orphanage 6 months ago and I was living on the streets ever since. The Hokage growled lowly and muttered under his breath, those stupid people, when they would learn the difference between a kunai and the scroll it is kept in. You say something, Jiji. I said I would deal with them later, okay Naruto-kun. Let's get you out of here and get something to eat. How does that sound to you? Sounds great Jiji, but I don't know why my family would leave me, was it because they didn't want me Jiji? He asked, looking down at his lap. He then looked at the Hokage, do you know who my family was, Hokage Jiji? Sorry Naruto, but I don't know who your parents were. At that same time the Hokage could feel the hidden crow mask Anbu shift in his spot but didn't say anything. Oh okay. Was all Naruto said before he blanked out deep in thought for a minute or so that he didn't hear the Hokage calling for him. You say something Jiji. Yes, I was asking if you are ready to leave and get something to eat and maybe get you somewhere to live and some new clothes as well. The old man said, hoping to cheer up the blonde. Yes, let's go. I hate the hospital, too much white for me. It makes me feel sick even though I am not. The next day Naruto wakes up in his new apartment that the Hokage had gotten him. It was nothing fancy, just a small one-bedroom with a small kitchen and sitting area right next to that. He had also gotten some food stuff like bread, eggs and milk. Thankfully the Hokage accompanied him or else getting food would have been harder than he thought. Yo furball, are you up? The blonde thought in his head. What do you want, brat? Replied a very angry and annoyed voice. You were right, the Hokage is lying to me. I don't see why he can't just tell who my parents were and why the fourth Hokage sealed you in me. It's not like I would tell anyone, the whole of Konoha probably knows already if how they treats me doesn't show it already. Look Brad, as I told you yesterday, I dislike humans, you use each other to satisfy your wants and need. Some of you are worse than the demons you called us. Treating your own kind bad and a child no less for something he has no control over, you humans are despicable. There was brief silence for a few minutes until the blonde spoke. Hey Kyuubi, do you know who my parents are? I do. Would you tell me who they are? When you are older and stronger then I would tell you. Gain my respect then maybe I will indulge you. And wow. Never mind, just get stronger and brat, don't tell anyone I talk to you, okay? The less people know the better it is for both of us. Sure thing, I mean chat with you later Fluffy, and with that Naruto's voice faded out of his mind. The Kyuubi growled indignantly, damn human, come in here and tell me that to my face. Let me squash you like the insignificant insect you are, human. Just like your mother, can't wait to see how you will turn out in the future, brat. Prove me wrong just like your predecessors, that not all humans are worse than demons, the Kyuubi thought. But that the Kyuubi returned back to what it was previously doing before it was disturbed so violently, and that was sleeping. Hokage's office. Here we find the Hokage, the famed professor and god of shinobi, sitting behind his desk in a battle he was pretty sure Kami herself couldn't win. Here he was fighting his arch nemesis, paperwork. The famed Hokage who survived 3 great ninja wars was forced to be a paper pusher. How life was cruel for him, as he thought if he uses a Kaiten jutsu on the stack of paper that was glaring at him from the head of his table, would his secretary notice it was missing. As he was in a glaring contest with his paperwork, he didn't notice the same Crow Mask Anbu who was with him the day before just appear out of thin air until there was a cough. He looked up suddenly and blushed slightly with a cough. Him right, report Crow. Said Anbu straightened and began giving his report. Mission accomplished, Hokage-sama, bandit camp eliminated. Very well Crow, nice work, your mission pay will be sent to you during the week. Is there anything else you would like to add, Crow? He said with a nod and finished with a question. Hi, the Crow Mask Anbu started, shifting on his feet in front of the man in charge of the village before continuing. I would like to request to be Naruto Uzumaki's personal guard, Hokage-sama. There was a long pause in the room, the Hokage stared long and hard at the Crow Mask Anbu for a few seconds that seemed to stretch for time indefinite. The hidden Anbus shift in their spots as the temperature in the room dropped a couple degrees. It wasn't until a few moments after then the Hokage spoke. Remove your mask, Captain. And with that the Anbu removed his mask, and behind it was a shoulder-length raven-haired teen with black eyes and teardrops marks at both sides of his nose. Pretty sure everyone knows how Itachi looks like. Why do you want to do such a thing, Itachi? A question if answered incorrectly could lead to more harm than good. Without even missing a beat Itachi spoke. Because Hokage-sama, a boy should not grow up being chased and beaten by the same people he will more or less have to protect in the future, and it is the least I can do for Kushina-sensei. Said the now named Itachi, who was looking the Hokage straight in his eyes. The Hokage stared at Itachi for another few seconds. The hidden Anbu in the room didn't make a sound or even shift to scratch an itch. The moment was tense as it was. It wasn't too long before the Sandai made up his mind, grumbling something intangible before saying, fine Itachi, I am hereby giving a S-rank mission to protect one Uzumaki Naruto until he finishes the academy or until something of much more importance comes up. You are to report to me every 6 months on his well-being. Also, Itachi, if anything and I mean anything happens to him, so help me Kami, you will be my sparring partner for 6 months and I will have you fetching Tora for the next year. Am I understood? The Hokage finished in finality. Hi Hokage-sama. There was not an ounce of fear or lack of conviction in Itachi's face or posture. Such was expected of someone dubbed as the perfect killing machine. At the mention of Tora, everyone had a shiver up their spine as if there was something viler than seeing Orochimaru in a pink bathrobe and slippers with a yellow rubber duck going and take a bath. Dismissed Itachi, and I hope you do well on your assignment. Dismissed the Sandai before he flicked his wrist, and like that Itachi was gone just as he came. As the Hokage was about to have some quality time reading his favorite orange book, he looked at the paperwork on his desk and could have jumped out his skin. The papers grew 2 times the size while he was taking with Itachi. Damn you Minato. was the shout that came from the Hokage's office, and all the Anbus in the room were snickering at their so-called fearless leader being reduced to nothing by a stack of papers. 1 week later, we find our favorite Jinchuriki at an abandoned training ground trying to throw some kunai that he got from the Hokage after bugging him for them. The Hokage had inquired of him as to what he wanted them for, and he told him it's for training for the academy, so he wouldn't get left behind when all the children that he go to school with got training from their parents. So here he was trying to hit a training post for the 100th time for the day with some kunai. Itachi was in the trees watching with amusement at his never giving up attitude, thinking how much off his mother he inherited. It was midday, and Naruto was still trying to get a kunai to stick to the post properly without staying for a few seconds, then fall out. Itachi couldn't take it anymore and decides to help him. "You know you are doing it wrong," stated Itachi, walking out from the tree line towards the blonde Jinchuriki. Naruto suddenly spun around, startled by the appearance of someone he didn't know. "What, who are you? And what are you doing here? You are not here to hurt me, are you?" he asked quickly while suddenly backing up slowly. Itachi frowned when he heard this. Someone so young, barely out of their diapers, facing things some adults wouldn't in their entire life. Kushina would have killed all of them for even thinking bad about her son. Itachi shook his head from his thoughts. "No, I'm not going to hurt you, Naruto-kun. I am actually a bodyguard the Hokage put to watch over you, so no one will do you anything else," Itachi said. He was standing in the middle of the training ground with the blonde, but staying a few feet away, so he wouldn't scare him away. "As I was saying, you were doing the exercise wrong and you have to put more power in your throws. Also, you can't swing your hand back too far sometimes or else you would overextend your throws." Naruto slightly narrows his eyes, watching Itachi for a few seconds, as if he was trying to figure something out. Itachi stood still, allowing Naruto to come to terms with what he just said. The raven hair Anbu almost smirk under his mask as he watches Naruto watch him. The sight was almost funny. Keyword, almost. "So you are one of those Anbu, right?" Naruto asked with inquisitive eyes. He had seen and heard the old man talk to them while he was in the office. Itachi nodded his head at the blonde, showing he was correct in his assessment. "So you gonna show me how it's done or stand there and watch me?" asked Naruto. With that, Itachi walked up to Naruto a little closer and without looking threw 3 kunai at the 3 training posts that was in the middle of the field, about 20 feet away from them faster than Naruto can see. All Naruto heard was 3 thumps. When he looks at the post he saw 3 kunai embedded in them direct at the center of the circle. Cough, Thinji, cough. Naruto blinked before a large goofy grin lit up his face. "Whoa, that was awesome. I didn't even see you move, you gotta show me how to do that," shouted an overexcited blonde bouncing on his heels like a giddy schoolgirl. He was thinking of all the possibility that can happen if he got this Anbu person to train him. He will get strong faster so he can get the fox to tell him who his parents are. "Don't get ahead of yourself, brat. Getting strong is not about getting it down the fastest time. You can learn 1,000 techniques in a few years or so, Kakashi, but someone who only knows about 20 or so techniques and take time to master them can beat that person with those 1,000 techniques jutsu. Why? Well, because that person with less techniques take time to master his own, whereas the one who has a lot of jutsu never take the time to master them, so he doesn't know how to use them properly. So you understand now, brat?" "Yeah, I think I understand now, Kyuubi. Thanks for the help." The Kyuubi snorted. "Whatever, brat, just don't get ahead of yourself. I will tell you who your parents are when the time is right. You just focus on getting strong to protect yourself later on in the future." "Yeah, sure, I can do that. Get strong to protect myself. It's a promise. I will be stronger than all the Hokages to protect myself and any special people in my life." But that the Kyuubi cut the mental connection between Naruto and itself. "So will you teach me how to throw kunaes, or better yet, would you teach me how to be a ninja? I want to join the academy, but I have no one to train me. So when I join I would not be kept back in class because the children would have training with their family and I have none. So would you train me, please?" And as if the universe was on Naruto's side, he unlocked the most feared Taijutsu in existence, the feared puppy dog eyes. All of Itachi's mental powers came crashing down like a castle built of cards in front of a fan set on high speed, but Itachi was not going to let him walking away with a get out jail free card so easily, so he thought of something that would save his years of Anbu mental training to keep up his facade. "Okay, Naruto-kun, here's what I will do. I will teach you the correct way for throwing a kunai, and if you can throw 3 kunai at the same time with the same hand and hit all 3 of those markers in 1 week, I will train you. How about that, are you up for it?" Naruto grinned, pumped his fist in the air. "Hell yeah, sensei, I am up for it. Once I have that stance down, you wait and see, by next week you would be begging to train me because I am that awesome. Believe it. I am sure you will get it down, Naruto-kun." Time skip. 1 year has passed since the 9-tailed Jinchuriki began his training with his sensei Itachi, and he is doing very well. He got the kunai technique in 1 week after lots of cuts and bruises. Itachi also taught how to unlock his chakra, so he now knows how to walk on a tree and on water as well. He also recently learned 2 of the 3 academy jutsu that are compulsory to know. The one he is having trouble with is Bunshin no Jutsu, and Itachi-sensei had said he will tell him the reason why he can't do the jutsu and also give him a jutsu that will substitute for it. He also learned the academy fighting style, but he wants to create his own style. Naruto also changed physically, also he no longer looks skinny and short, but he has some meat on his bones, even though he still have some of his baby fat still on his face and other parts of his body. We find our blonde making his way to training ground 43, next to the infamous training ground 44, or better known as the Forest of Death. As he was about to jump in the woods to head to his destination, he heard a small cry and he decided to check it out. As he gets closer to the cry, he saw a small girl about the same age as him surrounded by 3 boys a few years older than her. She was kneeling on the ground, tears running down her face, while the leader of the 3 boys, from what Naruto can tell, was telling her to say sorry for something. He didn't really care what it was, but from seeing this brought back memories of his past, and he didn't want anyone to live through what he did, so he ran up to the leader and punch him in the back of the head and stand up in front the girl protectively. "Hey, what are you guys think you are doing to this poor girl? What did she ever do to you for you to treat her like this?" asked Naruto rather angrily. The supposed leader of the trio got off the ground with a huff and snarled, "Who the hell are you? Wait a minute, blonde hair whisker marks, you're that kid my mom tell me not to go around, right? The prankster?" asked the leader of the kids. "Yeah, that's him." Boy number 2 answered. "My mom warned me about him also. She said something about demon but I can't remember." Boy number 3 cuts in, "Anyway, you're gonna get it." Forgetting the boss while he had his back turned. They all laughed. "What are you going to do? We are in the academy and we are older than you. You don't even have a clan, so how hard can beating you be?" the leader said. But that Naruto put his hand in a cross sign and a smirk. Right away the boys stopped laughing and backed away slightly. Meanwhile, Naruto was sweating in his mind, hoping the Bunshin no Jutsu would work this time, so he can buy some time to get the girl out of the area, but as all the rest of time the Bunshin came out looking like it was just revived from the dead. It was looking sickly green and wobbling on the spot, then after a few seconds it fell to the ground and dispelled. But that was all the time Naruto needed, as he used that as a distraction to attack the leader with a straight right hook to his left jaw, which knocks him on the ground out cold. The other 2 were afraid to attack, which shows that their leader was the muscle of the group and he wasn't even much, just a schoolyard bully. But that they picked up their boss and ran away saying they will tell their mothers. Naruto didn't really care because he didn't like 99% of the villagers already. So with that Naruto turned back to see if the girl was okay, only to see her looking up at him with wide eyes from her place on the ground. Now that he got to look at her properly, he can see she is the Hyuga heiress that sensei told him about when they were doing all of Konoha's most influential clan in the history lesson of Konoha. Naruto just give her one of his foxy grin that only he can do to perfection while scratching behind his head. "Hey, are you alright?" he asked, slightly worried that she was hurt. He didn't need people blaming him for something he didn't do. Hi, arigato for saving me," said the heiress. She was looking at the ground in embarrassment. Naruto nods his head, breathing out a sigh of relief. "Well, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, and what's yours?" he asked politely after having manners beat into him from Itachi literally on their monthly spars, where he can't last 1 minute even if his life depends on it. My name is H. Hinata Hyuga. Nice to meet you Uzumaki SSSN. He raised an eyebrow at her stuttering, but just shook it off as her being weird. Nice to meet you too, Hinata. I hope you don't mind me calling you that, he asked slightly. She shook her head negatively. So what are you doing all the way out here? And where is your mother or father? Sen died a few months ago when my sister was born, and Sen doesn't have time for me anymore. She cringes at the memory of losing her mother. Most of the time I am with one of the branch house members. Hinata said, unaware that she did not stutter for that whole sentence, but Naruto didn't call her on it. Right when Naruto was going to say something, a man with the same eyes as Hinata came into the woods, veins bulge around his eyes, most likely using his blood limit. Hinata-sama, oh thank God, I was looking all over for you. Your father would not be happy, where did you ran off to? Asked the man. When he turned his head to see who she was talking with, he quickly grabbed her hands and dragged her away from Naruto, telling her that she should not associate with the likes him. All Naruto could really do was smile sadly at her and wave. By the time she blinks and goes to wave back, he was already gone from his spot in the woods. Hinata just had a sad look on her face, hoping she would be able to see her savior once again. Maybe he would be going to the academy at the same time as her. She can only hope. At the training ground, Itachi was waiting patiently, wondering what's taking his student so long, because he usually don't be late for his training. He didn't have to wait long before he saw a yellow blur shot out from the woods and land in front of him. Sorry for being late, sensei had some problems on my way here, but that's been taken care of. Naruto apologies with his head bowed. He knew how much his sensei dislikes tardiness. Itachi nods his head, accepting Naruto's excuse. He wasn't one for being late for training. Okay Naruto-kun, here's the scroll that has the substitute jutsu for the bunshin, it's called Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Now this jutsu uses a lot more chakra than the bunshin. Even I can't use this jutsu to make more than 10 clones of myself. I want you to read to scroll carefully and then practice the hand signs. When you are done then come to me in an hour and we will see how well you do. Okay Naruto. Hi sensei. He answered with determination in his eyes. -1 hour pass. Okay sensei I am finished. Okay, now do the jutsu and put as much chakra as you can without emptying your reserves. Fine, here goes. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu and just like that 300 clones fill the training field all over. Wow, never thought I would see someone made this many clones since Kushina sensei taught Itachi. Clearly he was impressed. Okay Naruto, I am going to tell you the reason why so much people hate you okay. What I say here today is not to be repeated to no one said Itachi seriously. He stopped wearing his mask to their sessions after the first date so Naruto could see how serious he was. Sensei if you are talking about the Kyuubi I already knew about him since I was 4. If Itachi was surprised he didn't show it on his face, he'd just nod and leave it at that. It was not him to get into people's business, but there is one thing he had to make sure of. Naruto-kun did the Kyuubi ever try to take over you or anything like that and do you speak to it often? Not forgetting that Naruto said him instead of it. Well now that I think about it sensei, no he never tried to take over me. He is really a nice guy once you get past the treats and stuff like that. He chuckled sheepishly. He said he would tell me who my parents were once I'm strong enough to know. So I am training hard so I can get him to tell me. Naruto said pumping his fist out. He then looked at Itachi. Itachi-sensei, do you know who my parents are? Asked Naruto. Itachi just stood there looking down at Naruto contemplating whether to tell him or not but decided to tell him about his mother's family. He didn't think the boy can handle hearing his father, the 4th Hokage, his hero sealed a demon inside him. Okay Naruto-kun I will tell you about your mother's family okay. I will tell you about your father when you are older and able to understand. But that said Itachi led Naruto to a tree in the training ground to sit under so he can tell the story after having Naruto release all his shadow clones and explaining to him the advantages of having shadow clones and the memory transfer. Time skip. 1 year has passed and Naruto is now 6 years old. We find him lying in his bed thinking about what he had done for the past year and the friends and rivals he had made. After that afternoon when Itachi told him about his mother's family and the Uzumaki clan, how they were masters at Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing, and Kenjutsu, the art of swordplay, and how they were also one of the founders of Konoha, and also the spiral that all ninjas tune and end up wear on their flak jacket is in memory of what the Uzumaki clan did for the Leaf Village, he made a special vow. To honor his family no matter what. It was also said the Shadame Hokage married an Uzumaki, and they are the one that created the barrier that is currently around Konoha protecting it from invaders. Saying Naruto was mad about all of this was like saying Orochimaru would not come for Sasuke in the future, not that he knows that. The Uzumaki clan did so much for Konoha and the most they had to show for their friendship is the spiral. Also, from what Kurama told him, both Shadame's wife and his mother were previous Jinchuriki protecting Konoha behind the scene and no one give the Uzumaki clan any credit for their hard work. Also, yay, he learned the Kyuubi's name after 2 hours of asking, more like pestering, the Kyuubi for it. Naruto also has gotten some new friends, not that he cared, Shikamaru and his best friend Choji. He met them while he was enjoying his day off Itachi had given him. He was sitting under a tree a ways from the park when the two boys came up and told him they usually camp there, looking at the clouds and eating. He sighed when he remembered that meeting. They were okay in his book, Shikamaru and Choji. Shikamaru was very lazy, typical Nara, and Choji was eating all the time. He also met his public enemy number 1 who was Itachi's younger brother, Sasuke Uchiha. He was as arrogant as an Uchiha can be and he hadn't even got his Sharingan yet. Just thinking about what will happen when that happens was giving Naruto a headache. He also hangs out with Hinata whenever he goes to the park to play or catch her following, more like stalking him. She would make a good spy or assassin when she grows to be a ninja. He may not like the villagers and plans on bringing back his Uzumaki family, but that doesn't stop him from going and play with the little friends that he have. He is 6 years old after all. He also got stronger after he started learning Fuinjutsu and when Itachi had him tested for his chakra elements, Itachi was very surprised to find out that he had 3 with wind being his strongest and rarest of the elements, followed by lightning and then water. After that he started to train in learning to control them. He has asked the Hokage for some D-rank missions so he can have some money to buy what little he need. The blonde had also had his first kill on a small mission him and Itachi went on. It was to destroy a small group of about 10 bandits. What really had both the Sandame and Itachi worried was when Naruto has his first kill. He had not spoken to anyone, nor has anyone seen him for a week straight. They had left him to his own devices, saying he needed time to recuperate from his experience. Naruto had turned a little colder towards everyone but Itachi and his 3 friends. Flashback: Itachi and Naruto were making their way out of the village to do his first ever mission outside the village. He was glad he was out. The world looked so different from the outside. They were traveling for 2 days and they finally made it to a small clearing in the forest. It had small tents with the biggest being in the middle. Itachi had Naruto send his clones to do recon to see if the information they had was right. Turns out they were right, with the exception of the boss being a C-rank missing nin. Okay Naruto-kun, here's what we are going to do. These guys are easy. I have no doubt you would deal with the bandits, but watch out for the missing nin, okay? I know you can take him, but I don't want you to underestimate your opponent. Itachi said, not looking at Naruto. So I would go east of the camp and you stay here and in 5 minutes we attack, okay? Just don't do anything stupid. Finished Itachi. Without a reply Itachi disappeared. He was slightly worried for the blonde. The young Uzumaki had grown on him and he would be damned if Naruto got killed on his first mission. Plus he didn't know what would happen to the young heiress that had a crush on the blonde, which said blonde is completely oblivious to with all the fainting and stuttering she does. Okay sensei, I got you. Naruto whispered quietly. He was aware that no one was around, but they had headsets. He created 5 shadow clones silently and waited patiently until the time was right. As Naruto and his clones walk into camp, the 5 take point in front of Naruto. Hey you kids, what are y'all doing here? This place is not for brats, oh scram! Shouted one bandit. It was loud enough to draw attention to him. Little did they know that it was the same person. Not that they could tell because of the fox mask that Naruto was wearing. Naruto had on standard issue Anbu gear custom made for him, with the tanto as well. Naruto said nothing, and before the bandit can say anything else the 5 clones started going through hand signs Futen. Renkuden no Jutsu wind release. Drilling air bullet technique. Before the bandits knew what happened they were flying back at breakneck speed in the opposite direction. Some were fortunate to survive, while some landed very hard on their neck, causing it to break. Some had bones snap from the pressure of the attack and were left vulnerable. Before the remaining bandits can get their bearing the clones rushed them with their tantos drawn, impaling all those on the ground and fighting off the rest. Before they knew what happened they were all dead. Some did put up a fight, but it was futile. There was one man, the missing nin, who stood with a shocked look on his face. All his men were taken down by 6 brats. They were ninjas, yes, but brats nonetheless. His shock turns into anger. Do you know how long it took me to set up that crew, you brats? The nin shouted, staring at Naruto and his clones about 20 feet away from him. All Naruto did was dispel his clones, and the memories came rushing back to him. He had to take a few deep breaths so as not to hyperventilate. Their rain was now pouring down on them like it was sympathizing with Naruto for what he did. A lone tear fell out of his eyes, but the nin couldn't see any of this. Ayubi was silently watching to see if its container would go off the rail, but was thankful he kept his cool. It would not do well for him to freak out at this moment. Itachi had not moved from his spot in the east. He wanted to see if Naruto can handle it, but he silently had a clone nearby to interfere if things got out of hand for the blonde. Naruto just drew his blade and got into a stance Itachi taught him. His knees were bent slightly with his left leg forward with the both hands on handle of the blade in a tight grip position in front of him pointing upward in a defensive way. It was a stance for learners, he was now learning use blades. The nin saw this and pulled out a kunai and growled, okay brat, you wanna play? When I'm finished with you, you gonna wish you never leave your pathetic village. And with that both him and Naruto rushed forward and clashed, kicking water in the process. HN, you are kinda strong for a brat. The nin drawled out as they struggled for power. He was now coming to terms with the realization that Naruto was no pushover. The nin had enough and backflips and started running through hand signs which Naruto saw and went wide-eyed at what jutsu he was going to use. He stuck his tanto in the ground and started running through the same hand signs, and they both shouted out at the same time, Suiton Suryudan no Jutsu water release. Water dragon bullet technique. With that water form from a small lake away from them and 2 gigantic dragons form and stood behind their respectful partners with glowing yellow eyes. With a mighty roar they charge and crash into one another, causing a massive earthquake in the area. Naruto didn't let that stop him. After the clash he started with new signs, Futen. Renkuden no Jutsu, wind release. Drilling air bullet technique. The ninja didn't know what hit him. 1 minute he was shielding himself from the blast, the next minute he was hit with 3 compressed air bullets. As he was getting up from the attack he looks forward to see where his opponent was and saw nothing. Then his world turned upside down. He didn't even know he was dead. That's what you get for taking your eyes off your opponent, thought Naruto as he finally finishes his battle, breathing harshly. The adrenaline finally wore out and he fell unconscious. Flashback end. After that event Naruto never liked killing, but he knew he had to do it. It was in his profession. If he wants to create a new Uzumaki clan he had to do it. He knew there would be a lot of death in the future. Naruto Uzumaki was not the same since then. he trained harder than ever. He was more self-centered, sticking to himself most of the time. Even the Hokage wanted to know why Naruto was behaving like that but never got an answer. Naruto also learned the body flicker jutsu, which he thought was pretty cool, especially when he learned to do it in his elements. Now the blonde was on his bed thinking about what Itachi told him 1 week ago. Flashback. Now Naruto-kun, this is the last 2 years we have together before you begin the academy, and you are already ahead of everyone there. I am very proud of you as your sensei, but don't let that go to your head. You still have a lot more work to do, said Itachi. Said blonde was sitting on the ground paying close attention to what his sensei was saying, who he now viewed as a brother he never had. Now for the next 2 years we are going to be taking your training to the next level harder than you ever have had before. I am going to train you till you break, then I would have the Kyuubi fix you up to do it all over again. As Itachi finished his sentence, he heard a gulp come from Naruto and inwardly chuckle. In all his years he had never seen someone progress so fast in the ninja arts. Not even he could excel this fast, but if he had to guess, it was only because of the help of the shadow clones that Naruto progressed so far so fast. Itachi had no doubt in his mind when he finishes his training, Naruto would be as strong if not stronger than him, and that is saying something. Oh Naruto-kun, this is a schedule of what we would be doing for the next 2 years. Itachi said as he passes the blonde a scroll with a blood lock on it. I have already given the Hokage a copy and told him we would be in training ground 44 for the first year of training, cause he would like to know how strong you have gotten. Yay, so he can see how strong his weapon is, growled out Naruto in a low voice so that no one can hear him, but Itachi heard but didn't say anything. So meet me at training ground 44 in 1 week at sunrise, okay Naruto-kun. Flashback end. Naruto looked over to his dresser top as he saw the scroll with his training schedule in it. As he picks it up and read through it for the umpteenth times this week, he was pretty sure the first year of training alone would kill him with all the physical exercise alone he has to do. It was something Guy would have trouble with as well. He had met Guy during the year to help him with his taijutsu. Guy had proposed weights for him to wear, but he had already had on resistance seals. So there was no use. Next on the scroll was ninjutsu, which Itachi would help him with, followed by taijutsu and kinjutsu. Itachi had introduced him to Hei during the year, so his sword play was up to snuff. Then finally, when all of this was done for the day, he would practice his fuinjutsu and riding. Out of all of this, the one thing Naruto is excited to get to was the fuinjutsu. It just comes naturally to him and it's a lot of fun. All of this is repeated for the first year, then he would work on perfecting all that he had learned in the first year. It's like Kurama said, makes no sense learning new justice and stuff if you can't use it properly. As he looks over to his clock on the wall to see the time and sees he has 2 more hours before leaving to meet Itachi. Well, time to go, thought Naruto as he makes his way out of his apartment and into the cool morning air. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon as he locks his apartment. Time skip. 2 years has passed, 1 year after that since they left the Forest of Death due to a mission that required Itachi, 1 year since he found out who his father was. He couldn't help but feel angry at him for putting such a heavy burden on him, but if he was in a similar position he would have done the same. 1 year since he got his father and mother's home after coming back and finding his apartment burnt down. He always wondered if his mother was a Jinchuriki like him, how come she didn't have to deal with the things he had to go through until he asked the Hokage, and he was told no one knew she was a Jinchuriki. So that leaves the question, how come everyone knew he was the container of the 9 tails? He was told, the Hokage told the council, and the civilian council members told the village, and that is how he ended up the situation he was in today. Also his spies, as in transformed shadow clones, told him that Danzo was and still is looking for him to recruit him in his root division. Well, he would have to wait a very long time before that happens. Also 6 months ago he had introduced Hinata to Anko after the girl was having problems with her family and being verbally abused by some of the main house members of the Hyuga household about not being able to beat her 4-year-old sister in a sparring match. It had taken the already shy girl's self-confidence to an all-time low that she can't stop stuttering, blushing or fainting while looking or talking to him. He can tell the girl likes him, but he was not going to be in a relationship with someone who is afraid to even talk, much less help him achieve his dream of bringing his clan back to prosperity once again. She has lots of potential, she just needed the right push. And Anko was just the person to help Hinata, at least in this situation. It was kind of funny to see how Hinata reacted to her new sensei. She had fainted for an hour straight after hearing where Anko spends most of her time and what kind of training she would have to endure. Naruto had a lot of faith in Anko, she would come through for Hinata's sake. If there was anyone he can relate to, it was Anko. So now the academy was starting tomorrow, and here we find both Naruto and Hinata sitting on his father head on the Hokage mountain, with Hinata sitting not too far from him snacking on a cinnamon roll that she loves so much. Her stuttering had decreased tremendously, but it still happens sometimes when he talks to her. Looking at her, he can see she is indeed a very beautiful young girl who would only get more beautiful as she grows up. The yen for your thoughts, Naruto-kun. You are sitting there staring at me for the past 2 minutes. Is there something you see you like? Asks Hinata as she finishes her snack. He shook his head to clear his thoughts. I was just thinking about the future and how I am going to bring back my clan. Naruto half-lied as he turns back towards the village. Now I have to go through the boring academy and I have to be in the same class as Mr. Arrogant as well. Might as well join Danzo and have him use me and Kurama as a weapon, Naruto said. He had told Hinata about the Kyuubi and who his parents were a couple months ago and give her the chance to stop being friends with him, but he didn't expect she would hug him and tell him how she didn't hate him for something he has no control over. From since then they had turned best friends along with Shikamaru and Choji. The Nara might be lazier than a sloth, but he was a bona fide genius. Never could beat Shikamaru at a game of shogi, came very close but never a win. So you were worried what he would do if you were to be the best in class? Inquired Hinata. She was looking directly at him. Me? Worried? Asked Naruto pointing to his chest. I am not afraid of him. After all, I was trained by one of the best. Besides, I'm not going to be the best in the academy. Sensei told me not to show off, and that's what I am going to do. I already have a spotlight on me with being the container of the Kyuubi. I don't want any more attention. A true ninja never revealed too much about oneself. Deception is the best tool. Not even the Hokage knows what I am capable of. A part of being a ninja is to trick your opponent into false beliefs, then striking when he least expected. Kinda like a fox. He smirks, showing off his canines. The Kyuubi just snorted in his head, which made the blonde chuckle lightly. Well, Hinata, see you tomorrow. Said Naruto as he got up and dusted himself down. I will come and pick you up at 7:30 in the morning cause the academy starts at 8. And with that Naruto was gone in an ice shunshin before Hinata could say anything. How come he knows shunshin and I don't? A pouting Hinata asked to no one in particular as she makes her way home from the top of the Hokage's mountain. Chapter 2. This can't be more boring, thought Naruto as he was sitting next to Hinata at the back of the classroom. First day of school and he already wanted to be somewhere else. He was wearing Anbu-style pants with ninja sandals. He had on a white close-fitting t-shirt with orange strips that ran along it that showed off his muscles he had for an 8-year-old boy, courtesy of all the training he did with Itachi-sensei and Guy. He didn't carry any weapons with him, seeing no need to since he was in the academy, and he didn't want to answer anyone wanting to know why a boy now starting the academy was carrying weapons. Hinata's clothing still remained the same, her clothing is like in the anime and Shonen Jump, though the jacket was not zip all the way up, only up to her mid-rib section just under her developing bust. Naruto could see working with Anko has already started to change her personality a little bit, hopefully not much, since he kind of liked the shy Hinata a little bit. He was brought out of his daydreaming by an elbow to the ribs courtesy of Hinata. He looked over at her and saw her eyebrows knit together in slight annoyance. Naruto-kun, are you paying attention? Asked Hinata. You spaced out for a few minutes and it is now lunch. So let's go and get something to eat. I made extra so you can share with me if you like to. Blushed Hinata at the last part. Naruto nodded, his boredom completely forgotten. Yeah, sure, why not? I didn't walk with anything to eat anyway. He agreed as they made their way to an empty spot under a tree in the school playground. As they were on their way, Naruto spotted Sasuke and his horde of fangirls and had to chuckle inwardly. He looks like he is having fun, thought the blonde. As if the brunette hair boy heard him, he turned and glared at the blonde, at which Naruto just grinned and returned to walking behind Hinata, who is leading him to their destination. The rest of the day went as a blur for Naruto with occasional chatter with Hinata, Shikamaru and Choji. He made it a point to follow Shikamaru's role and sleep through some of the lectures, much to the irritation of Hinata and the lecturer who didn't like the blonde anyhow. He spends the rest of the afternoon with Hinata until she has to go and train with Anko, or crazy snake psychopath, as Hinata nicely phrased it. As she left for her destination, he wondered where his sensei was since he hadn't seen him in a while. Also, if this is how his next 5 years in the academy would be. As he thought about it, he could only sum it up in one word: troublesome. 5 years have passed and a lot has happened. First, and one of the biggest things, was that his sensei Itachi killed his whole family down to the last child in his clan, but made a big mistake by leaving his younger brother, Sasuke, alive. Sometimes he wonders if Itachi was sane in the head to leave Sasuke alive. Itachi also gave him a present before he left the village, and only the Hokage, Hinata, Anko, 3 doctors and his new sensei Jiraiya of the Sennin, which he found out was his godfather by reading his parents' letter to him given by the Hokage, knew about the gift. Which was a surprise to everyone, but they didn't question it. Flashback: Naruto was heading to the Uchiha clan compound estate. He wanted to talk to his sensei about training and other personal stuffs he had in mind. As the estate came into view, a shiver suddenly ran up his spine. He stops and looked around only to see no one. The streets were cleared of any life, which was understandable since it was night out already. As he entered the compound, the first thing that he noticed was the place was dark and completely void of any life whatsoever. The second thing was that there was a feeling of death hanging in the air. he had already killed when he and Itachi had gone on a mission to deal with some bandits that was harassing a small town north of Konoha, and it was not a pleasant experience, but he knew being a ninja, he would have to kill often. He was broken out of his thoughts when he heard a blood-chilling scream coming from the part of the compound he knew where Itachi and his family lives. As he raced to the direction, he was shocked to see all the bodies that littered the place. He was wondering how he didn't notice it before. Some were burnt badly while some their throat and necks cut or sliced clean through. It was clearly a very disturbing sight to look at. He was sure if he hadn't already killed on multiple occasions, he would have broken down and emptied his stomach at the sight before him. As he made it to the dorm where he heard the scream, he saw a shadow head out from the room and made its way into the open streets. If Naruto wasn't a trained ninja, he would have probably missed it. So with it, he decided to follow and see what or who this person is. As the figure suddenly stopped and turned around, Naruto saw two pair of Sharingan eyes spinning and staring at him with a bored expression. There was only one person he knew with that expression. Itachi-sensei. What's going on? Why is everybody dead? What happened here? Asked a slightly scared Naruto. It was not every day you see a once powerful clan reduced to this. Right now he couldn't even come up with a word. He was too scared right now, and what made things worse was that his sensei was bathed with blood over his skin with an object in his hand. It looks to be a jar with liquid inside it. Itachi was surprised but didn't show it. Naruto-kun, what are you doing here? Never mind, I was on my way to see you. I have something for you. As he said that, he walked forward and placed the object on the ground and stepped back. What happened here, sensei? Asked Naruto. As he looked at the object, he can see something floating in it, but it was too dark to tell. Well, what can I say? There was a pregnant pause before Itachi continued. I was testing my strength. Itachi replied in his bored monotone as he ran his hand through his hair. He was wearing his Anbu armor and clothing with his tanto strapped to his back. Did you kill your own family? Everyone? Naruto shouted. All Itachi did was nod. I left Sasuke alive. I couldn't bring myself to kill him. Why did you do it, sensei? Was it worth it? Shouted Naruto. He lost the will to stand and was now on his hands and knees, breathing hard on the verge of tears. His sensei, someone he treated like a big brother, had just killed his family, all of them, like if it was nothing. How was he supposed to take it? He will be branded as a traitor. Now everyone was going to hate you. He hated the situation he was in, it made it feel vulnerable, weak. He had dropped his mask and showed his true self. He had not cried since that night when he was 4, but here he is on his knees, tears streaming down his face. Only 3 persons has even seen his true self, and one of them was standing right in front of him. As Itachi watched Naruto, he felt remorse for what the blonde was going through right now. It must be tough for him to drop his mask and cry openly. It was not something he would ever say he had seen Naruto do since they met that day. Sure, he lets his true self show once in a while, but to openly cry was another thing. Naruto would be one of the greatest ninja one day, if not the greatest. He have no illusion about that, but it broke his heart just as much as it broke his heart to have Sasuke live through what he put him through a few minutes ago. So with that, Itachi made up his mind. Listen, Naruto-kun, I'm sorry, but I don't have much time left. Please take care of Sasuke for me. I know you two don't get along well, but please protect him. He is all the family I have in the world, including you. With that, Itachi turned and was about to walk away, but stopped and turned back to Naruto. I have one last order for you before I go. If you want to know why I killed my clan and leave Sasuke alive, take my gift, Naruto, and use it. Get strong. You are already almost as strong as me. By the time you finish the academy, you would be as strong, if not stronger than me. Next time we meet, we will be enemies, and then we will fight. If you win, I will tell you, and if you lose, you will die. Itachi stated. His visage gone dark and his voice cold as the night. While that is being said, his Sharingan started spinning wildly. Then it shifted design into a new design that Naruto had never seen, his Mangekyo Sharingan, and then shifted back after a few seconds. As Itachi was going through his speech, Naruto was staring at him with wide eyes and shock on his face. His sensei wants him to get strong, stronger than him, so they would be able to fight. He was going to have to kill the only brother figure he had in his life. Naruto was wondering if this was all just a bad dream. Just hoping he would wake up and everything would be fine. But he knew better than that. So with that, Naruto looked down at the cylindrical object on the ground. At the same time, both of them heard shuffling of feet headed to their direction, and Itachi looked in the direction and looked back at Naruto, only to find the blonde was already gone. He didn't even feel him leave. Itachi was pleased at that. Yes, Naruto Uzumaki would be the greatest one day. As student, the Yondame's legacy, the last Uzumaki who wants to protect those he love and bring back the Uzumaki clan to the once powerful clan they once were. The legacy of the Uzumaki clan. As Itachi looked forward, he saw Sasuke coming in his direction with a kunai in his hand. Naruto was not too far from Sasuke at Itachi's location, hidden behind a building, watching Sasuke and Itachi converse. He could see Sasuke was crying and Itachi was telling him about something about hate and to test him, but he couldn't make out all of what they were saying. As he was watching them, Itachi suddenly disappear and appear on top an electrical pole, and as he watched he saw Itachi Sharingan started spinning, then it shifted into the Mangekyo Sharingan in the shape of a windmill shuriken. Then he heard Sasuke started screaming then collapse on the ground twitching every couple second. He watched Itachi leave, surprised what he saw. Was Itachi-sensei crying? Flashback end. As he was on memory lane he began to think about his life from then onward. He trained to the bone. It also helped that he was being trained by one of the strongest ninjas alive. He still remembers how he met Jiraiya. It was a year and a half after the Uchiha incident. He was making his way out of the bathhouse that he was in until he heard giggling and went to check and saw the same person his parents had talked about in their letter. Also specifically the same person his mother had warned him about and what would happen to him, Naruto, if he turned like him, Jiraiya. Even though she was dead the letter was pretty scary at that part. A shiver run down his spine just thinking about his mother angry at him. From all the stories he heard of her, it was suicide to argue and make her mad. He learned that she almost killed Jiraiya for peeping on her, even though it was by accident. From the pictures he saw with her, she was very beautiful. Even more beautiful than Hinata he would have to admit. Her long red hair alone was captivating to him. Back on topic, he remembers pushing Jiraiya in the female side of the bathhouse, which had Anbu and Jonin Kunoichi who were relaxing. It was very enjoying watching, that was payback for peeping on his mother. Even though she was quite beautiful, he had to admit. His father must have been a happy bastard with such a beauty. He often caught himself daydreaming about his mother. He would give anything to see her just once, do anything to have her part of his life. This was his mother he was thinking about, maybe it was the sleepless nights he have been getting since the incident. Yep, that was it. Back to watching Jiraiya get the hell beat out of him. Said man was lying on the ground twitching for a few moments, then the next he was up like nothing ever happened. After that meeting with him the man had tried for 2 weeks straight to get on Naruto's good side. Naruto finally caved in and give the man a chance to make up. Besides he could be valuable asset to the blonde in the future and thinking about the training Naruto can get was making him giddy like a schoolgirl inside. Naruto was strong, hell he was Anbu level, but training with Jiraiya can make him even stronger. Another memory Naruto remember was Hinata becoming his official girlfriend about 3 years ago, 2 years after start the academy. If someone said that Hinata would become who she was today, any sane person would have asked if they are talking about the same shy, stuttering Hinata that everyone knew. If they saw Hinata now they would have fainted or have a heart attack from a nosebleed and high blood pressure. This Hinata was a total vixen to sum it up in one word. Even Kurama had made a few offhanded comments about the new Hinata, which Naruto couldn't agree more on. This Hinata is the one from RTN, a perfect mixture of Hinata and Anko. She had finally gotten the courage to finally tell him she loved him. She was also not the weak girl anymore. To put simple, she is around Jonin level. She doesn't win in her spars with her sister, but she doesn't lose either. She even created a few techniques on her own with the help of Anko and him. She is also treated better now in her clan. Her sister, while mad at first about not being able to best her sister anymore, grew to love and appreciate the closeness they develop afterwards. She even went as far as to ask her one-san for help in her training. So Hinata took it upon herself to train her sister when her father and relatives aren't around. Hinata kept to herself, reserving most of her talents like her Naruto-kun. No one besides Naruto and Hinata knew what each other is capable of. Even though she is 13 years old, her developing body shows otherwise. Curves in the right places, full pink lips, a round and soft ass and her full C-cup breast. She was an early bloomer like most Hyugas but a total goddess in his eyes. The only girl who can give his Haim a run for her money was the Yamanaka heiress Ino, who is right behind her when it comes to looks followed by Sasuke #1 fangirl, Sakura Haruno. Naruto had also mastered his father's 2 signature technique, with the Hiraishin being the hardest. It took him and Jiraiya 2 years just to understand the formula. Naruto knew it was Shikafujin, but there were other elements involved that he couldn't understand. He had finally found out that it deals with blood. After mastering it, he had to train with it to get used to the speed. The first time he used it he threw up his lunch and the next time he overshot the marker and ran into a tree. He was already fast. Faster than most Jonin but to move so fast that time seemed to stop was another thing. He had gotten Hinata a present. It was a silver chain being the same color as her eyes and a stone that was very hard and he heard was one of the most expensive stones out there. It was lavender color and had seals of the Hiraishin engraved on it. So he can reach her anytime she wanted or he can teleport her to him. The stone was made with adamantine which was a very strong and durable stone, said to be on par with Orochimaru's Kusanagi sword. He had even formed a rivalry with Sasuke Uchiha, not that they had anything going mind you. The emo seemed to get even more arrogant and his fangirls seemed to love it. Ino stopped being a fangirl after hanging out with Naruto and his crew more often and would sometimes join them in training. They made sure not show too much because they don't want anyone knowing how strong they were, well, Naruto at least. Not even the Sandaime knew how strong Naruto was. He made Jiraiya promise not to tell him about the Hirishin and the other jutsu he was working on. The blonde was also working on finishing the Rasengan like his father wanted to by adding elements. Guess what? Easier said than done. So he decided he would take his time, no need to rush. He would work on perfecting what he knew already. He had also found one of Orochimaru's bases on the outskirts of the village. It was a madman's fortress, pieces of body parts here, DNA there. He also found something interesting, that's an understatement to the things Orochimaru deals with. So here he is sitting at the back of the class near a window with his back towards it. Hinata was bracing on him while talking to Ino and some other girls about stuff he don't really care about. He also had his small fan club, much to Hinata's dismay, but unlike Sasuke who ignores them, he made it a point to at least acknowledge their existence, sometimes even spending some of his precious time entertaining them with whatever they had in mind for him. Just sometimes. Some days they would hang out during lunch or after school, which he wasn't really into, but he didn't want to be rude and end up like Sasuke. Naruto's personality changed as well after that night with Itachi. Naruto took it upon himself to act more like Itachi, calm, cool, collected and mysterious, which started earning him some fangirls. It sometimes freaks the hell of Hinata and annoys Anko to no end. He wore a black pants with red strips running up the sides, a white muscle t-shirt which showed out his muscles, which had buffed up considerably since he started training with Jiraiya, much to Hinata's and his fangirl's joy. Also he had mesh armor over that and a black and red jacket with a uzumaki spiral on the back. He had kunai and shuriken holster strapped to his right leg and a pouch on his belt on the back of his left side. He had a lot of seals on his skin, some of them are resistant seals that Hinata and him have on, and also on his palm of his hand has his mother's sword sealed in it. I will describe the sword later. On his right hand has a tattoo of a giant fox with 9 tails which are running up his arm to his shoulder, then turned and headed straight to the seal that was located on his stomach. He also grew out his hair like his father, which was now halfway in his eyes, which he constantly have to move it out of the way. He would have cut it, but Hinata said she liked it like that, it made him look more badass as she puts it. He was taller too, reaching a height of 6 feet, being one of the tallest boys in class, with Shikamaru and Shino being an inch taller than him. Hinata changed as well. She was 5 feet 8 inches, placing her as one of the tallest girls in class, tied with Ino and a girl named Ami. She wore a purple tank top that showed off her bountiful breast and lavender and purple jacket like the one she had when she was younger, but this one was thinner. She had taken a page out of Anko's book and gotten a miniskirt which was purple as well, and it reached about halfway down her thigh, inches above her knee, much to her father's charging. She wore a body mesh armor like Anko, but this stops up to her knees and takes over her whole hands, hiding the seals she have on. She had seals as well, but not as much as Naruto. She had the resistant seals and also seals that are in both her palms holding 2 weapons her love had gotten her. Her love for Naruto had grown over the years, she loved Naruto with her whole heart and would do anything for him. She may not be shy anymore, but sometimes he does things to make her blush and stutter. The day was the last day of the school term as well as their school lives and the last 7 counting down to be a genin. They were given a week off before the exams come around. She can only imagine the relief her boyfriend must be feeling right about now. It was just 5 in the evening and they were making their way to their favorite spot after the wonderful date that they had. Surprisingly, the restaurant owner didn't throw him out, but the waiter could have used some employees' booster tips or something, because every time he came around he would always glare at Naruto for God knows what. Okay, he knew what, but still. As they settle on the Yondaime's head, Hinata suddenly straddled Naruto's lap and kissed him passionately on his lips with all the love and compassion she could muster. Naruto was taken aback by the gesture, but he was not one to look a gift horse in its mouth, so he returned the kiss with equal fervor. After a few minutes of moaning and lip-locking, they pulled away for the much-needed air, but they were still close enough to feel each other's breath on their lips. Hinata didn't know what possessed her to do what she did, but she wouldn't change it for anything. The kiss lit a flame inside her like she never felt before. I love you, Naruto-kun, with all my heart, and I would follow you wherever you go. No matter what the consequences may be. You are everything I would want in a boyfriend and everything I would want in a husband, and I hope to one day bear your child and help you revive your clan. Hinata said as her breathing calmed and she was looking straight in his eyes with love and admiration. Naruto was a little shaken with her confession. Yes, he knew she loved him, but he didn't know it ran that deep. All he could do was smile, a true smile that was only reserved for her, Anko and sometimes Jiraiya when he wasn't being a pervert. Somewhere near Omegakure, Jiraiya felt the urge to shout that he was a super pervert, but pass it off as the cold air getting to him. They were making their way to the Hyuga compound hand in hand, just enjoying each other company in the evening air. Hinata was latched onto his right arm while he has his left in his pocket. They were getting many stares and glares, but they didn't let that bother him. So Naru-kun, how's that project you are working on coming? asked a slightly inquisitive Hinata as she looked up at the blonde. He answered without looking at her, well it's harder than I thought, but I am getting there. Just a couple more months and I should have it down. Naruto would have to say the person was a genius for creating that jutsu, but they should have known not to mess with the laws of nature and the gods. There will always be consequences and someone will misuse the jutsu. He saw the jutsu used once in the past, but he was the only one that knew about it. Such disrespect should not go unpunished. He would find the person who used it and make them pay. With that they arrive at the Hyuga household. Well, this is where you get off. I will see you in 1 week. Naruto said while looking in the large gates at the entrance. Why don't you come in, Naruto-kun? I'm sure Hanabi-chan would be happy to see you. You haven't visited her in a while. Naruto sighed, sorry Hina, but I can't, I have some stuff to do. Plus not everyone in your clan likes me. The guards at the gate heard what he said and just looked at him impassively. Well, they had no ill will for the boy, they couldn't fathom why Hiashi would allow his daughter to associate with such a boy. But they dare not question him. Hanabi, who at first wasn't so keen on seeing Hinata and Naruto together, had inquired of his sister as to what made her like Naruto. What made him so special that she couldn't find some other boy to like that was socially acceptable. Hinata had given her a few reasons why, but insisted that Hanabi get to know Naruto before judging. At first, Hanabi was reluctant to even acknowledge his presence, much less talk, but after being confronted by the boy himself courtesy of Hinata and later talking once in a while, she saw firsthand that Naruto Uzumaki was not some outcast many made him out to be. He was just another boy, an orphan looking to make friends. He was funny and surprising keen and had an acute and devious mind if his pranks were anything to go by. And if there was anything that stood out about Naruto Uzumaki, it was that he was unpredictable to the highest power. After those few meetings she grew to immensely enjoy his company, even sparring with him on a few occasions. But unlike her sister, she never beaten him in a spar. She never lands a hit on him to begin with. On a few occasions Hinata had caught Hanabi silently spying on Naruto with the kind of look in her eyes that Hinata didn't find humorous. But Hinata never confronted her about it. Back to the present. Hein, just don't forget to pick me up graduation day. She sighs dejectedly. She was slightly sad, but she knew he was right. Before they parted she pulled the blonde close to her and tiptoe and give him a kiss which lasted for about 10 seconds before pulling away. I love you, remember that, okay Foxy-kun? A smirking Era said as she walks away with a sway in her hips. She knew he was watching her. Naruto left eye twitch at the nickname Anko and her had given him. Thinking about Anko, she was getting distant as of late. He wonders what that was all about. Oh well, no need stressing about that now. I'm one step closer to my goal. He folds his hands behind his head and walked off to where only he knew. Couple days later we find Naruto walking down the streets of Konoha wondering. He didn't have anything to do today. Well, technically he could go and train, but he was doing that all week. As he passed a food stand he heard his name called, looking to see who it was his face brightened at Anko waving at him with a few dango in her mouth. He shook his head at that. She was as bad as him with ramen. Oh, hey Anko, he waved back. What can I do for you? He inquired walking up to her at the shop. What? I can't see and talk to my favorite Foxy-kun. She grinned, finishing off her favorite snack. Naruto sighed, that nickname again. Okay then, how are you Anko? I haven't seen you in a while. I was wondering if you were avoiding me. Is something wrong? The grin that was on Anko's face faded and she looked down at her remaining dango. There was silence at the table for a few moments while Anko ate her dango until it was finished, then she decided to speak. You want to spar or something? It came out more pleading than she wanted to admit, but she didn't care. She had to get this off her chest today. Naruto shrugged, why yeah sure, I don't have nothing to do. That was the truth and he wanted to know what was her mind that have her acting so un-Anko-like. A few minutes later and they were in training ground 44. At a suitable field where they can have their little spar. They were both facing each other. Ever since they left the dango shop Anko hadn't said anything which was bothering him. You sure you're feeling okay Anko? We can spar another time Yakno. Naruto-kun, do you like me? She asked silently, her eyes staring up at him, hands shaking slightly. Naruto blinked and he blinked again and again. Where the hell did that came from? The question caught him completely off guard. Yeah, I like you, Anko, you know that. He reassured her, still slightly uneasy as to where this was going. Where is all this coming from? No, I mean, do you like me Naruto? He was really confused now. Where is she going with this? Unless. Naruto stared at her with a straight face, you know I am with Hinata, so why ask me such a question? Okay, I'm gonna get straight to the point. I like ya a lot. She started, first I thought it was just a crush I had developed a couple months ago, but then I started thinking about you. Then before I know it I can't get you out of my mind. My feeling developed into full-blown love. She took a deep breath after that confession. This was taking more out of her than any training could. She was not accustomed to this whole confess your feelings stuff, but for him she would do it. She had to be with him. If this was any other guy, they would have had to wait until Orochimaru turned good before she would do this. But Naruto is different, she had to have him. Even if she had to beat the crap out of Hinata and convince her to share him. He was everything she wanted in a man. Also he can relate to the pain she faced, even though her pain in no way compares to his. So I just want to know if you find me girlfriend material. I mean what you think of me? She was practically trembling, the fear of rejection was evident. She can handle being rejected by the villagers, but the person who she fell for was another thing. Naruto could literally smell the fear coming off of her. He felt very sorry for what she was going through. To drop her mask and do this must be hard for her. He was truly sorry, but he couldn't do this to Hinata. She was amongst the first to accept him. He couldn't cheat on her. He breathed in deeply, this was going to be an awkward day. I'm sorry Anko, but I can't like you and Hinata at the same time. I don't think she would like that. He dejectedly said. The pain and sorrow he felt for her was evident in his voice. Anko just nodded and bowed her head. Tears were welling up in her eyes, she was about to turn away until she had the last part of his sentence. He didn't think she would like it, she thought. She dried her tears and smiled a true smile. This set off lots of warning bells in his head. He tensed. When you tell a girl you can't like her, the last thing you expect is for them to be smiling, unless they are planning to kill you and hide the body so the girl you're with wouldn't get to be with you. Naruto was leaning on that since they were in the forest of death, and he was pretty sure even though Anko couldn't beat him in a one-on-one fight, she might resort to other means to do away with him. So all I have to do is make her like the idea of sharing you, huh? She said to herself, but Naruto heard her. She was weighing the pros and cons in her mind. Say what? All he said was thaw. Oh, don't worry your pretty little blue eyes, I will take care of everything. Said Anko. She licked her lips and skipped away from Naruto to go look for Hinata until she stopped and turned around. I will be seeing you later Foxy-kun, I wouldn't keep you waiting. With that she shunshed away. Naruto was left standing there like a deer in a headlight. The hell just happened? He asks to no one in particular, looking around hoping to get an answer, only to get a loud roar in the distance. He sighed and decided to wait and see how this will play out. He just hoped this doesn't make things awkward between Anko and him. Oh well, guess I can go home and practice my Fuinjutsu or something. And he teleported home. Everyone had passed their test and was now genin with the almighty Uchiha being rookie of the year, things couldn't get more boring. At the same time Iruka walked into class and begin his long speech about being ninjas and something like that, making his previous thought insignificant. Team 7 consists of Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura and Sai. Your Jonin sensei is Hada Kakashi. After some shouting courtesy of Sakura, he continued. Team 11 is Uzumaki Naruto, and his sensei is Yamato. Hey sensei, how come the dope didn't get a team? I thought only 3-man cell can have a sensei. A student asked while everyone else was wondering the same thing except Naruto and Hinata. Naruto would have thrown a fit if he was on the same team as Sakura and Sasuke. Sasuke smirked at that, the dope must suck so bad the Hokage had to give him a sensei so he can work and catch up with us. The whole class laughed at that. Yay Sasuke-kun is way better than you Naruto baka, screeched Sakura. Naruto as well as Kiba and his pet Akamaru cringed at her over boisterous voice. Her deportment is that of a fangirl. The ninja world was nowhere for a fangirl. Naruto just didn't bother with the both of them. But that Iruka left the class to their own devices as he congratulated them one last time before leaving the class to wait for their sensei. One by one the teams disperse and then the rookie Jonin come and take their students. Hinata was happy she got Kurenai to be her sensei since she knew her for years. The only thing bothering her was Kiba who keep humping her like a piece of turkey on Thanksgiving. She liked Shino, he was mostly silent and more times than not would be logical. He wouldn't do or say something without logical meaning. With her last thought she bid Naruto farewell. Just as they were about to leave, they saw a man with brown hair and black eyes. Standard Jonin flak jacket with Anbu-style pants and shirt. He had his forehead protector like the Nidaime Hokage, coming around at the side of his face like a helmet. You know how Yamato looks, right? Not good at describing him. So Naruto-san, it's been a while since I last saw you. Hope everything is good with you. Yamato greeted with a smile. Naruto returned the curt gesture with a nod and a smile of his own as they made their way to their usual training ground where Naruto had first went to help master his wind element. I am fine Yamato Taicho, been training with Iro-sen and Anko-chan, also Hinata-chan. So what are we doing here? Asked a slightly inquisitive blonde. I hope we don't have to do that stupid test because we both know I am no pushover. He plainly said with a raised eyebrow. No, we're no going to do a test. Yamato shivered slightly at the memory of the last time they sparred, which was about 3 years ago. He almost got frozen and his wood style was no help either. He had fought a few ice users in his time, but Naruto really took the word unpredictable to a new level. I just wanted to see how you are doing and the Hokage wanted to talk to us. So I think we should be heading there as well. But that said, they shunch into the Hokage tower, with Naruto appearing first and was seated on the window the same way his sensei Jiraiya does. He was looking at the old man giggling and reading one of his many Icha books. He wasn't any better as he have the latest volume, actually it's the one that's not supposed to come out until in the next couple months. Hinata had caught him reading it once, but she didn't say anything, she just looked at him straight in the eyes blankly. Anko was another thing, she even reads with him sometimes. Weird. He shook his head, getting rid of any thought of her. She didn't show her presence for the few days he was off. He coughed lightly in his hand to get the Hokage's attention. In which the Hokage jumped and hid his book quickly and looked around only to see Naruto staring at him with raised eyebrows. Ah, haha, Naruto-kun, the old man chuckled nervously. How nice of you to show up so abruptly and without saying a word. Where is Yamato? I thought he was supposed to be with you. And just then there was a knock on the door and Yamato entered looking a little irritated that a boy was able to outrun him in the speed department. He was an Anbu, for crying out loud. Little did he know that Naruto is arguably one of the fastest persons in the elemental nations without the Hirishin. He did have seals all over his body. So what can we do for you, Hokage-sama? You said it was urgent. Inquire Yamato after getting back his bearings. Yes, well, give me a minute. After that the Sandaime sent his secretary for the person he wanted to see. As the door opens, Naruto can honestly say that she had to be one of the most beautiful women he had ever seen in his life. She was a slender woman in her early 20s. She had green eyes and ankle-length auburn hair styled in a herringbone pattern at the back, a top knot tied with dark blue band, with 4 bangs at the front. 2 bangs are short with one covering her right eye and 2 are long, crossing each other on her bust, just below her bust. She wore a long sleeve, dark blue dress that falls just below her knees. It seems to be open at the front with a zip and is kept open at the front right side from waist down. The dress only covers up to the upper part of her arms and underside of her breast, with mesh armor underneath her clothing. She also has shorts with the same color as her dress and underneath those, mesh leggings reaching down to her knees. Around her waist she wears a belt with pouch attached to the back to the left, along with high-heeled sandals and shin guards reaching up over her knees. As the woman walked in the room she didn't notice the other 2 occupants inside. Good day, Hokage Dono, have you come to a decision about my problem? Because I can't stay longer, I have to return to my people. She asked, getting to the point even though she was the one being called. He nods his head and pointed to the side of the room showing the other 2 occupants. Yes, I have Mei-san, I would like to introduce 2 persons to you. This is Uzumaki, Naruto and Yamato, and I think they would be enough to help you with your problem. As she looked to where he pointing to, she couldn't stop the small blush that crept on her cheek. She can honestly say she have now seen the most beautiful blue sapphire eyes she had ever seen in her life, looking directly at hers. As she was looking at him lost in his eyes, she didn't notice he walks up to her and grabbed her right hand and kissed the back of her hands. It's a pleasure to meet such a beautiful woman, Miss Terumi. Complimented Naruto. Mei couldn't help but blush more, completely taken aback by this young man's compliment. Well, it is my pleasure, Naruto-kun, to have such a handsome young man accompany me, and I have never seen such beautiful eyes in my life. Replied Mei in a flirtatious voice that even the Hokage shivered at. She returned one of her bangs behind her ear and shook his hand. Naruto smirked at the flirty woman, she could give Anko a run for her money. Naruto-kun, huh, chuckled Naruto softly. Well, Mei-chan, I hope we get acquainted with each other as we travel. No one in the room missed how Naruto punctuated the word acquainted in that sentence as he kissed her hands again. As he was about to step back he heard a cough and turned to see both the Hokage and Yamato were looking at him and Mei, both with different expressions on their face. For Yamato he had a tick mark on his head and was irritated at being ignored like that. As for the Hokage he had a big smile on his face while giggling softly like a schoolgirl. Oh, that's my boy Naruto. But his thought finished, Sarutobi cleared his throat and spoke, okay Naruto-kun, let's get to business, and with that the atmosphere changed to a serious one. Mei was quite surprised to see the same teen she was flirting with was all professional in a matter of seconds. Sarutobi continued, so Naruto-kun, what do you know about the situation in Kiri? Chapter 3 Kiri arc, wet. That was the only word Naruto could use to describe how Kiri felt. He was accompanying Mei and her entourage along with Yamato to an island where the rebel forces were located. He had visited the water country before, but not this far inland. You didn't have to be Tobirama to pull water out of the air with how moist the place was, with an unnaturally thick fog being almost everywhere. So Mei-chan, how many men do you have in your forces? Asked Naruto as he shook the water out of his hair. Mei struck a thinking pose as they walked, one finger tapping her chin lightly before she answered. Well, Naruto-kun, have about 2,000 soldiers including both bloodline and non-bloodline users. Currently Yagura has us outnumbered 3-1, but if we take out some of his safe houses around Kiri, we can diminish his forces. At least it will give us a fighting chance, not forgetting you too. Mei said, pointing to Yamato then Naruto. I hope you guys have something to contribute. It seems your Hokage has enough faith in you that you will be enough, let's just hope he is correct. She finishes that last part silently, really hoping these two shinobi can make a difference in this war. But that they reached their destination. There were hundreds of camps set up around the place. In the middle of it all was a large tent where he supposed most of the higher-ups and may have their meetings. The place was capable of housing 100 or so people. As they made their way to the tent, many of Mei's soldiers greeted and welcomed her back. Making their way into the large tent, Naruto saw a large circular table in the middle of the tent with a map of Kiri. Also a lot of people were around the table, which had to be the generals of Mei's army. "Welcome back, Mei-sama, we hope your journey was fruitful." One of the generals greeted them as they made their way to the table. Many of the men and women around the table were at least Mei's age or much older. Naruto was silently observing how all of Mei's men treated her with respect and admiration, even though some of them were way older than her. He was brought out of his by hearing someone calling his name. "This is Naruto and Yamato from Konoha." Mei made introductions. Their Hokage said that they were all he could spare, but they would be more than enough. For a minute or so no one said anything until another general, this time a woman, was the one that broke the tension. "Mei-sama, I think the Hokage tricked you. How can just two persons be of any help to us? Yes, we are grateful to the Hokage for his support and help, but I highly doubt that these two men can turn the tide of this war in our favor. Especially a mere boy," she finished, all the while never voicing the last part out loud. Naruto was about to retort, but Mei beat him to it. "Watch your mouth, General, are you trying to say that I am stupid? I know very well what I did. We need all the help we can get. The other nations wouldn't even spare us their time, much less lend us a hand, so we have to make do with what we get. Forgive my insolence, Mei-sama, I meant no diss. No, it's alright, forgive my outburst. I just want this war to end so that my people can live in relative peace and unity without having to wonder when Yagura will send his people to end their lives." Mei sighed at the last part. She really hoped that these two from Konoha were the real deal. "Don't worry, Mei-dono, we will not disappoint," said Naruto. He decided to drop the chan and be professional. No need to make a bad impression at their first meeting. "We will help you win this war and that a promise of a lifetime. Isn't that right, Yamato Taicho?" Yamato, who had been listening silently this entire time, nodded to Naruto's comment. "Naruto is right, we will help you win this war. The Hokage has placed his trust in us and we will not betray that trust. Now, we should move on to more important things, like the safe houses Yagura has around the water country and how we can take them out." Mei nodded to that. "Yes, Yamato Dono is right. As you can see on the map, the red dots are Yagura's forces and where they are located. We have yet to discuss how we are going to infiltrate his forces and take out these safe houses," she said, motioning to the map. "What we need now is someone who is good at infiltration. My forces are stretched too thin, and while I have a handful of good infiltrators, I don't suppose one of you knows espionage and infiltration?" asked Mei, looking at Naruto and Yamato. Both looked at each other, then Naruto looked at Mei and gave his famous fox grin that promised mischief. Mei had to try hard to suppress a blush from showing on her cheeks. 1 week later we find a group of ninjas with hoods on, making their way through the black of night heading in an unknown direction. Well, the direction they were heading in leads to one of the 3 main camps of Yagura's forces. After about 15 minutes more of running, they finally reached the outskirts of the camp. One of the figures turned and nodded to the one next to him, and that person vanished. The figure appeared 50 feet away from the first sentry for the camp. As the moon shone down at that same time, you can see a few strands of blonde hair poke out from the hood over his mask that he has on. The now identified Naruto was waiting until the moonlight was hidden by the clouds again. As soon as the clouds covered the moon, Naruto made his move. 1 second and a kunai later the ninja was on the ground bleeding out from his throat so as not to alert the other sentries. As he takes in his surrounding, he can see a lot of ninjas around the camp. There were about 10 alone guarding the entrance, and he would bet there would be a lot more inside. The place was big, a 30-foot wall can attest to that. The wall spanned the place 100 feet on the sides, the left side going to the edge of the lake nearby and the right side go to the edge of the forest. "Okay, let's do this," Naruto thought. Hench. "Man, this is boring. Why did the Yagura-sama have to increase security all of a sudden?" complained one of the Kiri guards that were guarding the gate along the top of it. "Just shut up and pay attention. Those freaks have been quiet for a few weeks now and we don't know what they are up to. Even though it would be impossible for them to take out us," responded another guard. He was standing around 10 feet away from the next one. They were wearing traditional Kiri Chunin uniform with the headband on their biceps. At the same time a cricket jumped on his shoulder, both him and the animal stare at each other, then the cricket jumped off and flew away. That was weird. Thought I saw that cricket had human eyes." The guard just shrugged and turned back ahead and continued his surveillance of the area. Before he knew what was happening, his world turned black and he was unconscious. The other guard only heard a thump. Looking around, he saw nothing. He swallowed hard. "Hey, Boris-san, you okay?" But no one answered. He was about to sound the alarm, but his world turned dark as well. Naruto smirked. Infiltration success. Easy as 1, 2, and 3 shadow clone jutsu. Henge the guards outside were none the wiser. As Naruto was inside the camp he could see a lot of buildings, must have been an abandoned village or something. He created a few shadow clones to help him map out the place. As he made his way to the middle of the camp, he took out any ninjas that he came across and replaced them with henge clones. He finally made it to his destination, which was a small building that kept prisoners in the middle of the village. It was not hard to find, all he had to look for is the building guarded by the most ninjas. Okay, all I need is a distraction. Naruto plotted quietly as he looked around. Can't find one, oh well I guess I have to improvise. With that Naruto grinned behind his mask and disappeared and reappeared in front of the building. As soon as he appeared, he was surrounded by ninjas. Who are you and what are you doing here? As the ninjas looked at the person in front of them they couldn't believe their eyes. They were looking at an old man maybe in his late 60s or early 70s or something. He was also carrying a small circular package with him. The ninjas were getting really impatient with this man for not answering his question as yet. Hey old timer, I will not ask you again, what are you doing here and who are you? As the disguised Naruto looked around, he could see about 10 ninjas surrounding him and he was pretty sure there were a lot more around the place. That was alright though, he just wanted to have some fun with this lot. Well I am just bringing some food for my grandson that's in prison. Here you can look at it if you want. It's just a cake. Naruto said in a gruff voice all the while grinning at the last part. One of the ninjas came up to him and takes the cake to inspect it. He unwrapped it slowly, hands shaking, sweat coming down his brow. The other ninjas were nervous as well as they took a step back as the last of the wrapping came off. Naruto grinned at that, they were a bunch of fools. Always look underneath the underneath. See, just a normal cake. No harm done. So if I can just have it back and I'll be on my way thank you. Naruto stretched to collect the cake but was stopped by another ninja. Wait, how do we know you don't have anything hidden in it? It could be weapons for the freaks. Naruto smiled at that. For a second he thought his plan was not going to work. Alright then, fair enough. Can I borrow a knife to cut the cake? The same ninja pulled out a blunt kunai and give him and he cut the cake in 10 pieces and gives the ninjas each a slice and he cut a slice for himself. All the ninjas watch him. Fine I will go first. And he ate his portion. Yep she still got it. With that all the rest started to taste the cake, they weren't big pieces seeing he had to deliver it to his grandson. Naruto was waiting for the effects of the very powerful laxative to kick in. He already had the antidote in his system. As if on cue. Wow this cake is really delicioso, oh man, my stomach. What was in that cake old timer? Nothing much is some stuff. My wife, she is a wonder in the kitchen isn't she? It was more of a statement than a question. He had got to thank Hinata when he gets back for baking the cake with the stuff from Anko inside it. Yep the forest of death can be used for all sorts of evil. As he was making his way in the building one of the ninjas who were having trouble controlling his shaking knees and bowels spoke. Hey you can't go in. That cake is dangerous. Hey the ninja grabbed Naruto's wrist only to get kneed straight in his stomach. That was a little too much for him and he released everything that he was holding back. A ninja's job is always messy Naruto thought as he dispelled his henge and created a shadow clone and had it dispel. The group that was waiting outside was getting impatient. Naruto was gone for 10 minutes and no sign of anything. They were waiting for some sign to know when to attack the fortress. Mei was worried most of all. She didn't want anything to happen to him and from what she heard he had a girlfriend who would not be pleased if he didn't make it back. She was going to order everyone to go in when the whole fortress was lit with explosions. She wondered how and where he got all those explosives from. As she was looking at awe at the fire show that was taking place in front of her eyes, she finally snapped out of her stupor. Okay everyone this is it for our country and people. Don't hold back and watch each other's backs. With a chorus of hi and a nod from Yamato, they were off to storm the fortress. As they made their way to the main gate they saw that it was blasted open and had 2 bodies lying next to it, presumably the guards. Entering through the destroyed gate, the groups of 20 or so ninjas were awed and some were a little scared at what they were seeing. There were hundreds of Narutos were running around the place. Some were killing ninjas in their path and some were running into buildings and exploding. Mei's forces made their way toward the center of the abandoned village, where they saw a group of clones in a circular position surrounding something or someone. When they reached the clones they saw what the commotion was all about. Some of the clones were barely holding in their laughter. In the middle was the small group of Kirinins holding their stomachs on wobbly legs with tears in their eyes. PP please see, let us through. I can't take it. I see can't bear it anymore. Cried out a ninja. One had enough and rushed in. Water release. Gunshot techniquia. He shouted in pain and pleasure. Poor man didn't get to finish his jutsu because he lost control of his bowels and messed up his technique causing him to drown himself. The clone saw Mei and her group coming and decided to end this farce. Okay boys, let's end this. Kill them all, leave no survivors, and somebody dispel to tell the boss that Mei is here. With that the clones drew their kunais and charged the Kiri soldiers. None survived. One clone dispelled to get Naruto just as the group arrived. Naruto? Mei asked, uncertain as to which was the real one. Also, too many blondes running around the place for her to think straight. Even with the mask on, it's still hard not to imagine what lay under the mask and clothing he was wearing. She shook her head to clear her thoughts. No time to be a pervert, even if it's tempting. Sorry, the boss not here, he is. Boom, a big explosion sounded off behind them, more precisely the building holding the prisoners. That's where you can find the boss. The clone sweat dropped, then muttered something about the boss having all the fun. As the crew watched as a hole was blown in the side of the building, followed by people starting to flood out of it. Men, women, children and old ones were running away from the building. As the building was about to collapse, a final figure shot out from the building and rolled a bit before coming to a stop at the foot of his clones. Naruto looked around and saw everyone was looking at him. He quickly got up and dusted himself off like nothing happened. Ahem, a report. He said, looking at the clone that was presumably in charge. Well boss, we killed all the ninjas and we held a few hostages for questioning. So the place has been cleared of any hostile ninjas. Great, everything was going according to plan. Cough. Also Naruto ended his thoughts and looked at the clone. 2 ninjas escaped, the ones that we had unconscious at the beginning. Yeah, they escaped. Naruto smiled at that, not that anyone could see with the mask he had on, everything was going according to plans. First stage of his plans to let the world know that the Uzumaki will rise again. He didn't use any Fuinjutsu, but there will be time for that. As soon as Yugura finds out there is someone, or rather a group of persons, with the Uzumaki clan whirlpool on their clothing, which he and all his clones has, soon word would spread in Yugura's forces that there is still more Uzumaki still alive. With a nod Naruto dispelled all his clones. He had to suppress bursting out in laughter from some of the memories he received. So he just settled for chuckling. So, we saved everyone that was imprisoned here. Also, I took out this whole camp by myself with the help of my clones, that is. Chuckled Naruto while scratching the back of his head. It was funny to see the reactions to their faces, all except Yamato, that is. It was then Mei and her ninjas were hit with a realization like a ton of bricks. What he said was in fact true. As they look around they can see the fortress was demolished and some of the Naruto clones were evacuating the people. As Mei looked upon the people's faces that were rescued she couldn't help but feel happy, the smiles on their faces were heartwarming to her. To be reunited to their family. Mei looks at the thing, or rather person who made all this possible. He was conversing with some other ninja. She walked up in front the group and all talking came to a stop. Everyone was wondering what she was going to do until she was standing about a few feet away from Naruto. He too was wondering what the auburn-haired female was going to do. Naruto was expecting a lot of things when Mei stopped in front of him, one of which wasn't bowing. It was not an overly dramatic bow but a sincere one, from the waist down. We thank you Naruto. I thank you for making this possible. She then stood up straight and looked him in the eyes. I know that this is just the first one, but we are in your debt. It warms my heart to see all these people, Mei said, looking around at the people who just got rescued reunited with their families once again. What Yugura did and is doing is beyond evil, and with your help, along with Yamato, I believe we will finally end this war once and for all. With that she bowed once again. When she finished, there were cheers from the rebels and the people around. Even Yamato nodded at what Mei had said. Naruto just grinned and scratched behind his head, by this time he had taken off his mask and hood. He didn't know what to do, he was never in a situation where he was the center of attention for so much people around. Well, he don't know what to say, the Hokage gave us a mission to help you, so I did just that. I am pretty sure if you guys had to resources, you would have finished this war already. It's my pleasure to help you Al and I promise that I will end this war and make Yugura pay for what he did with the help of you all. It's a promise of a lifetime and I don't go back on my promises. There were more cheers and praise for what Naruto said. Mei smiled, Naruto Uzumaki, she will forever remember that name. If what he said would come true, well then his name will go down in history. She also wants to see how strong he is, since the Hokage sent someone so young. From her understanding, he was a student of Itachi and is currently the apprentice of the Toad Sage Jiraiya of the Sannin. As the celebration was going on, Mei remembered that they were still behind enemy lines, so she cleared her throat a little loudly to get everyone's attention. Okay, I know everyone's happy, but we have to get out of here. So if you would be so kind as to follow my men, we can get you to our camp and everyone can get cleaned up and something to eat. But that they started to file out until it was just Naruto alone in the area. The smile that he had on his face faded and in its place was a frown. He turned and looked back at the demolished building that was the prison and stared at it for a few moments as if he was solving some puzzle, which in actuality the situation can be likened to that. You okay, Naruto-kun? Mei asked. Since they weren't around anyone, she went back to calling him what she was more familiar with. She was with the group until she noticed that he was not with them, so she came back to check for him. Yuho yeeha everything's fine. Must have gotten lost in my thoughts. He cleared his throat and straightened up. What are you doing coming back here by yourself? Suppose something bad happened? He said smirking. What? I am very capable of handling myself, mister. I can spam a lot of shadow clones and don't die from chakra exhaustion, don't sell me short. Mei shot at him. Hey, I wasn't talking about you being in danger, I know you are a strong and independent woman. No need to get mad. Naruto put up his two hands in a surrender kind of gesture. Mei nodded at him. Damn straight she was independent, she is a cage level kunoichi after all. I like a strong and independent woman. He said softly, hoping she didn't hear. What was that? Mei heard him but she wanted confirmation. The thing, just mumbling to myself. He smiled. He was really getting to like her more and more. She didn't let her power get to her head like some people, cough, itches, cough. Plus she treats her people with kindness and equality, the making of a real cage. He was about to continue, but she cut short his mussing. I think it's time we go. The others must be wondering where we are. Naruto nodded to that. They were gone for quite a while, or he was at least. As she walked past him, his eyes couldn't help but be drawn to her ass. The way it swayed in the fabric was hypnotic. It didn't help that the dress was tight. He stood there watching for a good few seconds. Are you going to keep looking or are you going to come along? Naruto chose not to reply, either in fear of his health or because he didn't want to come off as a pervert. He looked once more at the building and jogged to catch up to her. Mei was internally pleased that she was attractive to him, she was a woman after all, and a man's approval does mean a lot in certain things, even if they are younger than you. By the way, Naruto-kun, you never told me how you got into the building. He had to suppress his laughter again for the second time. This is not good for his health. Well, you wouldn't believe what I did. Kurigakure, Mizukage Tower about a day later. Knock, knock, come in. A young but powerful voice said. In walked in the two ninjas that escaped the camp with their lives. Why, Yagura-sama? They bowed. The now identified Yagura looked up from his papers he was signing and addressed his loyal followers. What are you two doing here? Is there anyone else with you? Yagura demanded. They were not supposed to be here, not for at least another week or more. The two swallowed hard, then looked at each other to see who would break the news to their Mizukage. They played a mental game of rock, paper, scissors to see who would go until it was decided who would break the news. It appears like the shorter of the two lost, so he turned to his superior, then swallowed again before continuing. All this time Yagura was watching the men, waiting patiently for an answer. Well, you see, he cleared his throat, it would be best to get this over with quickly. We were attacked, Mizukage-sama. As soon as the words left his mouth, the whole room was filled with killer intent. What? By whom? Yagura was outraged. He was out of his seat, both hands on his desk, which was cracking from the amount of chakra output he was letting out. Who would dare attack him? Couldn't have been the rebels, they hardly had the manpower and resources to pull something like this off. Even if it was them, they had to have casualties on both sides, and maybe he can have any prisoners interrogated in the most harsh ways and find out their entire secret up to who was their secret crush. It was the rebelsi. It was them. This time it was the other one that answered. These two didn't get to see who attacked them per se. All they knew was that they were knocked out, and when they come to, they were left unattended, so they made like the yellow flash and disappeared. Yeah, we saw them, also we saw some headed figure with a fox mask and the Uzumaki clan sign on his back. Of course they would know the Uzumaki clan, after all Kiri was involved in their destruction, even though it was almost 2 decades ago. Yagura sighed, this was not good, contrary to popular beliefs, he is older than he looks, and that is telling on his nerves right now. Are there any survivors? He asked as he sat back down. He didn't even know why or what the reason he is doing all this, but all he knows is that he has to do it. No sir, no one survived but us. They killed all of the others and released the captives. The short one replied. Yagura nodded, some sacrifices had to be made, and still he couldn't help but feel sad and angry at the loss of his soldiers. Mei will pay for her foolishness, but first. Sukai, am more interested in this hooded figure, somewhere I've heard or seen them from. He pushed back his chair and pulled out a small drawer, inside had small black books with village signs on them. He picked the one that had Iwa on it. This book was the bingo book, where all the world's criminals and most feared ninjas from C to SS classed are placed. As he skimmed through the book, he got to the page he was looking for. Ah, yes, here it is, Uzumaki Kitsune, ranked A in Iwa bingo book. It said that he is proficient in both Ken and Fuinjutsu. Aha, well blah blah blah. They have no picture with him. All they have here is that he has blue eyes and blonde hair. I'm beginning to think I will have a fetish for blonde hair and blue eyes. The bounty on him is impressive though, 20 million Ryo alive and 10 dead, for just an A rank nin. Mused Yagura to himself. The two ninjas were listening quietly. They were wondering if they should still be in here or not. Excuse my intrusion, Yagura-sama, but what shall we do? Do we increase patrol numbers for the other two major fortresses? The tall nin inquired. Yagura looked up from the book to the two Kiri nin and nod. Yes, and my secretary, on your way out, I'll have to set up a meeting with my generals. With a wave of his hands he dismissed them. He will have to deal with May once and for all. Konoha, Hokage office. Hiruzen Sarutobi was very happy today. He had almost finished all his paperwork and he still had daylight to burn. He can finally catch to some quality reading he had missed oh so much. Nothing can make this day better or worse. Just you wait, my precious little orange book, Giggles, I'll be with you in a little bit. Nothing will separate us today. Just as he finished his sentence, the door to his office opened and walked in his three least favorite people in all of Konoha. Shit, I had to open my big mouth. He mumbled under his breath. What can I do for you, Himura, Kaharu? Then he turned to the last person with a walking cane and bandages on his right arm and face, Danzo. As you can see, I'm busy, so make it quick. It was Himura who decided to speak. Well, Hiruzen, we are concerned about our Jinchuriki. You have him going on important missions that will jeopardize our safety if he is killed. Then we will be a laughingstock to the rest of the nations if they catch wind that our Jinchuriki has died. Kumo and Iwa would be at our doorstep the very next day. First of all, Himura, it's Hokage-sama to you, and don't forget it. Any of you. The Sandaime said, looking at the three occupants of his office with a stern face. Secondly, that mission is supposed to be S rank, meaning only I knew about it. Anyone wants to explain how you three know about it? The three shift on the spot for a moment until Danzo chose to intervene. It matters not how we know here, Hokage-sama. The main point is that he shouldn't be out of this village. He should be locked away. Danzo banged his cane on the ground. Hokage-sama, we can't let the demon get too much power. We have to keep him on a leash. Give him to me, I can train him to be obedient. He is our weapon. Hiruzen sighed. He was tired of having the same arguments over and over again. I know, Sai, I know. If I had known he would get this strong and disloyal, I would have handed him to you, Danzo, but I can't. You know that. He's too strong, and Jiraiya will have my head for doing that to his godson. I can't do anything. Well, I wouldn't say we can't do anything. We can make a compromise. Danzo said. Hiruzen looked at him with one eyebrow raised. He was wondering where he was coming from. Only then did he see Danzo was looking around in the office, and then he caught on what he was saying. With a wave of his hands the room was cleared of all presence but them. He laced his fingers together and leaned forward on his desk. What do you have in mind, Danzo? I was thinking, he started walking forward, if we can't get to him directly, then we should try indirectly. By taking the thing he loves most. He stops in front the desk. There was a pregnant pause in the air as the Sandaime think about what Danzo had just said. Himura and Kaharu were listening silently at the two rivals. It was then that the Hokage had just caught on to what the Warhawk was hinting at. Are you mad? This is the Hyuga heiress we are talking about. Danzo would have gasped if he wasn't the leader of the root. For a second it looked like he had finally reached to Hiruzen. It's no secret the Hyuga heiress is dating the Uzumaki. It was a big thing when she announced it to her father, and then the whole village found out. How? No one knew. The Hyuga treats the boy like family for helping their heiress grow a backbone, so to speak, well, the side branch, and some of the main branch, that is. This is absurd, Danzo. Out of all your plans, this one is the most foolish yet. Do you want another Uchiha incident on our hands? The god of shinobi shouted. He can't believe the nerve on the man. No. 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 I will not agree or appoint any of my ninjas to carry out such a stupid idea. I will not endanger innocent lives so that you can get your weapon. I am already on thin ice, as it were, with Naruto. He thinks I was the one that wanted him dead on the mission I sent him on about a year or so ago. Do you know what he will do if he finds out about this? Danzo was just standing there listening. The only indication that he didn't like what he was hearing was the cracking noise his cane was making from him clenching it tightly. To Himura and Kaharu, well, Kaharu mostly, this was gold. It was not often you get to see the Kami no Shinobi lose his temper. She was indifferent when it comes to Naruto. Himura, on the other hand, was a diehard loyalist to Danzo. Schoolgirl crusher fangirl attitude was the only way to describe it. She was brought out of her mussing when Danzo walked past her and out of the office. With nothing else left to be said, they exited the office as well. Hiruzen got up from his seat and walked to the window behind him. As he got there he saw a small grasshopper was trying to get out, so he opened the window a bit and let it out, also to let in some fresh air as well. As he was looking out in the village, he couldn't help but think about Naruto. The boy was stubborn, just like his mother. When she was told not to get involved with the third shinobi war, she didn't listen, she disobeyed. That where she got the name Red Death. She was said to be stronger than the Yondaime in all but speed, brains and ninjutsu. Naruto was brash just like her. The only thing the boy got from his father was his looks. He didn't inherit his will of fire or anything. He wondered if it's an Uzumaki thing. He ended his thoughts when he felt his Anbu return to their previous places hidden. Looks like I won't be getting any reading today sigh I just had to open my mouth. Oh look more paperwork. Damn parasites with it he ended his thoughts. Root base. Anzo was not happy. He was hardly happy about anything to be frank, but today he was mad. He knew not to let his emotions get the best of him, but he just couldn't help it. The Sandaime was going weak, soft, he is in one word, incompetent. He was afraid to make the big choices or decisions. Fortunately, he was around to make sure everything runs its course. The tree would not survive without the roots. And the roots always protect the tree in the darkness or shadow. It had been 1 month since Naruto had left the village for his mission, and nothing much has changed. Well, to the untrained eyes it may seem so, but in the shadows something or someone was cooking up something. There is nothing better than dango, red bean paste and green tea on a beautiful day like today. Said someone while eating. Yep, nothing better than cinnamon buns and tea, sigh the life. Another commented. The FTT, Paulus, you don't believe that myth, cinnamon buns are good, I'll give you that, but dango is the epiphany of all things good and sweet. You know what's better than both dango and cinnamon buns? If you say Raymond I'm gonna castrate you, don't ask how but I can and will do it. Ignoring the disturbed look she got, she continued. A Kafin, what is better than cinnamon buns and dango? Without missing a beat, the other person replied. Our foxy cunt of course. I can't believe you are putting dango ahead of him, shame on you Anko-chan. Oh. Come on Hina-chan, you know I would never do that. It's the dango that's talking, not me. The now identified Anko replied pouting. Hinata just chuckled. She loved messing with Anko whom she loved like a sister. Hey Hina, maybe when he comes back I'll make it up to him for thinking such a crime. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Hinata just shook her head and allowed her to daydream. They were having their girls' day out today. So they were getting a light snack before heading for some quality training. Hey Anko, do you sense them? They've been there for a while. Huh, oh yeah. I do. Are they the same Anbu that were following you the whole week? Hinata nodded to the question after discreetly turning on her Byakugan and checking. She can't see their faces, but she can tell they were not normal Anbu. The Hokage wouldn't do something like this, and besides they have white animal masks with no on them. Naruto had warned her about them. You want us to go say hi? I'm pretty sure they're friendly. A sarcastic Hinata asked. I wouldn't mind, but if I'm correct they are Anbu level, will you be able to manage cause there are about 6 of them. Anko watched Hinata with a raised eyebrow as she thinks it over. She already knows what she was going to say, and besides she too wanted to stretch her legs. Being in the T&I department all the time was showing on her skills. Hinata was able to inflict more damage than usual, and it was not pretty. Okay, I've made up my mind. We go over there, see if they are nice guys and treat them to a good time. And if they are not nice guys? Anko moved a bit closer to get the answer. If they are not then we what? She was getting impatient and it was obvious by her shaking feet. Then we'll educate them. Anko face planted on the ground. She was expecting something more exuberant, something viler. Anko got up and dusted herself off, good thing it was still early in the day and no one was around to see that humiliating fall. Seriously Hina, come on, I was expecting something more I don't knowable. Hinata just chuckled evilly. Well I guess you'll just have to improvise. Look, let's go to your playground and have a spar, and if they don't want to be gentlemen about it, then we'll try to get their attention. How about that, sound like a deal? Anko thought it over for a second, she was wondering if it was a good idea to spar when you have Anbu level shinobi after you, but just shrugs it off. No pain no gain. After a while Anko nodded. Good, now last on there has to pay for the meal. And Hinata was gone. Anko was about shunching away until she remembered that the meal has to be paid before leaving the food stand. Realization hit Anko like a ton of dango from above. That bitch tricked me. Training round 44. The sound of clashing metal was heard to anyone who was unfortunate enough to come across the dreaded training ground, known as Forest of Death. Both Hinata and Anko were going at it for about half an hour now, and both seemed to thoroughly exhausted if the sweat, blood and panting was anything to go by. Hinata tumbled on the hard ground, then skidded to a stop on all fours as she was kicked in the stomach. Coughing a bit, blood was dripping down her chin from her mouth, and her clothes were ripped in places. Anko wasn't doing better, her head was bleeding, and her trench coat was so damaged it might as well be used as a cape for child. She was bent over breathing hard, and her right hand fell limp at her side. A few tenketsu were closed in her chest and back. They've decided to have an all-out taijutsu battle. They wanted to see whose taijutsu style was the best, Anko's serpentine style or Hinata's custom gentle snake fist style. It was clear that Hinata trumped in the taijutsu category. Oh man, that last kick hurt like a bitch. Murmured Hinata lowly while rubbing her tummy. Did you have to kick me so hard Anko-chan? I felt chakra in that. Anko just straightened up and wiped the blood off her face with her only usable hand. Serves you right for making me pay earlier, next time you do that I'll kick you someplace you wouldn't like. And can you unseal my damn tenketsu, they hurt like shit. With that, Anko made her way to the river that was flowing nearby to clean herself up. Hinata struggled to her feet, then followed Anko. After washing off herself, she then turned to help Anko. "You know, Anko," Hinata started as she unsealed the chakra points. "They didn't do anything as we were sparing, even when we were injured they just kept watching. Do you think they thought we were don't know faking it or something?" Anko just shrugged. "Beats me what those ply boards are waiting for. They could have taken us when they had the chance, but it's gone." "Oh yes, that feels much better." Anko said, massaging her right hand. To have chakra flowing back through it was like ecstasy. To make it much better, Hinata started to massage her shoulder. Meanwhile, with the masked nins, they could not believe what they were seeing. First they were told to keep an eye on the Hyuga and when the time presents itself, kidnap her. Easier said than done. She was always with someone and they couldn't kill everyone that she was with because it could cause repercussions. Secondly, when time did presents an opportunity, she was in public or at the Hyuga estate. They were Anbu level operatives, but they were not stupid to kidnap her in her own home. That was already tried and it was a total failure, plus they would be in a compound full of Byakugan users. You get the picture. They couldn't wait anymore, they were on a deadline. They had 1 week to capture her, bring her to their master to have some valuable information removed, then wipe her memory of the whole ordeal before anyone noticed her missing or before the Uzumaki returns. 1 week was their order. They had to catch her and they would rather die than disappoint their master. So the presumably leader of the group with a white boar mask on turned to his subordinates and nodded. They nodded back, seemingly understanding the silent command. "Back with Hinata." Right there, just a few more minutes, just a little bit more." Anko moaned out. She was having one of the best massages of her life. "Sorry Anko-chan, but that's gonna have to wait. They are here." As soon as she finished her sentence, they were surrounded by 6 white masked ninjas, each branding kunes. Took them long enough to show their lifeless faces. Hinata got up from the ground and looked at all the ninjas around her. There was a smile on her face, but she was on guard. "What can we do for you guys?" The boar masked nin stepped forward. "Our master wishes to speak with you." "And who is this master you speak of?" she inquired, her guard fully in place. There was a moment of silence, then the nin answered. "Danzo-sama wishes your presence." The smile on her face vanished instantly. So that's why Naruto told her to watch out for these guys, they work for that freak. Oh, she was very well acquainted with the man. He had showed up once at the compound looking for recruits for his little boot camp. Sad to say for Danzo, her father didn't take it well. She was warned about him from her father. His soldiers have their emotions wiped out from them or erased. Terrible. That was when Anko chose the time to announce that she was still among the living. "Okay, you emotionless freaks of nature. I don't care who you are and I don't give a half-ass who you work for. For all I care, Danzo can go suck balls." Each masked nin flinched at that last remark. "No one, and I mean no one, interrupts my massage time. So here's what gonna happen. We will kill you all and then I will go back to having quality time with my harem sister. Everybody wins." She then fixed her clothing properly and pulled out a kunai from out of nowhere, same with Hinata who had her taijutsu activated. "So who's first?" There was dead silence for a few moments. "Okay then, I will begin this party." That being said, Anko threw a kunai at the boar masked nin who used his own kunai to block it, but as it fell to the ground, he saw a piece of paper ignite and then boom. Both girls jumped back from the blast and waited with bated breath, hoping to catch at least one of them. They were both not fully healed from their workout a while ago, but it didn't mean they couldn't handle these guys. As the smoke cleared, they were not disappointed to see they did catch one nin, who by the looks of it was scrambled. From his waist down was blown to bit. His rat mask was coated in blood. "Okay Hina, you go left, I go right, and we meet up here when we are finished. It might be impossible for us to defeat them how we are, but we can let the forest do that for us, plus we still have a full tank of chakra." Hinata nodded and disappeared from spot. With Hinata, she was jumping through the trees at a fast pace, looking for a suitable place to have a battle with the Anbu and his partner. She drops from the trees just moments before a few kunes had replaced the spot where she was. As she dropped and looked around, she got a good look at her wannabe captors. One with the monkey mask was the short one, which seems to her to be about her age if not younger. The other one with the rat mask had more of a lean build and was presumably older, seeing as he was taller than her. As the square off, the taller one spoke. "Hyuga-san, come with us and no harm will come to you or your friend." Even though he said it with no emotion, she knew it was a lie. "We don't want to use force, but if we have to we will." "What is your decision?" Hinata just glared at them harder and stepped into her Jaikin stance. "Let's just get this over with, you bastards. I don't know and don't care about what your one-eyed prick of a master wants me, but I'm not going, so I guess you'll have to use force." Nah. They stood staring at each other until the short one rushed in at the same time as Hinata. Both intercepted each other halfway and exchanged a series of blows. They were at it for a few minutes. Hinata was surprised to see he was dodging her. As they separated, she charged again, this time faster. Her strikes were aimed for his head where he ducked and went for her midsection. She dodged to the right side and hit him 2 times in his upper hand. They both jumped back. Hinata was getting tired of all the hand-to-hand fighting. So she run through some hand signs. Suitin Daibakufu no Jutsu water release great waterfall technique and open her mouth wide. A huge amount of water came out and flooded the entire area. The ninjas jumped out of the way and landed a safe distance away from her. Alright, now that I've evened the playing field a bit, she smiled, let's begin. She ran through more hand signs. Suitin no Jutsu water release water dragon bullet technique. The water began to spin upward behind her until it changed shape into a huge dragon with glowing yellow eyes. With one mighty roar the dragon charged the 2 ninjas. The tall ninja ran through his own hand signs. Kaiten Gakaku no Jutsu fire release fireball technique, boom. The 2 jutsu exploded on impact, shrouding the area in a thick mist. The rat mask nin chose to create as much distance from the mist and him as possible, since he knew he was fighting a Hyuga and seeing as none of them knew any wind jutsu. The monkey mask nin held his ground and armed himself with his tanto with his one good hand. As he waited, he saw a shadow coming to him. Hinata ran out the mist straight to the nin with a kunai in hand. They clashed for the second time. Both at stalemate trying to overpower the other one. You're tougher than expected," said Hinata. The nin said nothing. As they separated he slashed at her which she blocked. She jumped back and threw the kunai at him which he blocked and she pulled out another one. He slashed at her head which she ducked under and slashed at his midsection. He spun to the side and slashed horizontally at her. She blocked with her kunai and pulled out another one. They continued slashing and dancing around one another for a few minutes until Hinata saw a fire dragon aimed at them. They both jumped out of the way. Hinata was getting tired of this. They are worthy of being Anbu level, but she had enough fun and Anko might already be finished with her set. She put up a hand sign and said. Fuin Kai seal release, her body lit up for a couple seconds, then returned to normal. He's now that feels better. Come now let me show you the difference in our power and will. She smiled, then disappeared just to reappear in front of her wannabe captive. In her Jaiken stance, the only difference was that 2 fingers were extended with lighting crackling on them, just 1 foot away from his chest. He was stunned momentarily, but that was all it took for someone or in this case, him, to be injured badly or to lose his life. You're within my field divination. Haki Rakujayan Rai SH08 trigram 64 lightning palms, and she struck. It was fast and deadly. First 2 strikes destroyed about 2 times the amount of chakra points in the area. As the lightning dispersed into the body it exploded, disintegrating anything within the surrounding. It seems like forever for the monkey mask nin, but he can honestly say it was his longest and most painful 3 seconds of his life. Not even Danzo's training can hold a candle to the pain he was feeling in every fiber of his body. His chakra network was completely destroyed. Blood was leaking freely down his chin even though his mask was on. His partner couldn't do anything. How could he? He was too far away and the whole act lasted about 4 seconds, not enough time for him to get to him. He did his job and some sacrifices had to be made. As the nin dropped to the ground, Hinata pulled out a kunai and plunged it into his heart just to make sure he stayed dead. There were after all, supposed to be no survivors. Hinata sighed heavily. She never liked killing. It was part of being a ninja, but she more preferred medic duty. Helping people was her pot of peas so to speak. She deactivated her Byakugan and wiped the sweat off her face. She was so deep in her thoughts she nearly missed the shadow that came over her. She jumped back just in time to miss a downward strike by her last remaining foe. As she turned on her Dijutsu and assumed her stance, she could tell that this fight will be way harder than before. It wouldn't help matters that she was feeling the strain on her muscles. The disadvantage about having to wear gravity seals, when deactivated, you have to take the time to get used to the speed and get back to normalcy, and this is a fight about capture or be captured, and God knows what Naruto would do if he ever found out this happened. She knew he cherished family and loved ones above all and Anko and her fall under both. As she prepared to have a final face-off, her right arm twitched and pain suddenly struck it. She looks at her shoulder to see a cut running along her arm about 6 inches long, not too deep, but it was bleeding bad. She wondered when she got hit, but then she looked at the Rutanin blade and saw it was coated with chakra, which in turn lengthened the blade, cause she was sure she dodged the thing. Also, it had a purple liquid on it, most likely poison she thought. She put that away for later, she had to finish this fast and get out of here. Why? Well, in a couple of minutes she will have all sorts of predators on her because of the blood of her and the dead body not too far away, and secondly, she was bleeding out, not life-threatening, but it could cause an infection. She will have to use her left hand. She pulled out some shurikens and threw them at him. He dodges them and charges her. He too was getting impatient with all this running around. He was never informed that the heiress was this good. The other guy had to learn the hard way, now he will take extra precaution. As he reached her he slashed upwards at her. She sidestepped and tried to stab him in the arm, but he saw that coming and caught her with his other arm, then he pulled her in suddenly and kneed her in the stomach. As he let go of her hands he kicked her straight in the chest which sent her tumbling across the terrain. As she came to a skidding halt on all fours she coughed up blood. Shit, cough, cough, that kick was harder than I expected. I think a bone or two is fractured. He sure doesn't pull his punches. That was a big understatement there, the last part. She got up back and charged at him as he readies himself. She swiped at his midsection which he blocked with his tanto. She spun around and tried to kick him in his side which he blocked of her leg and went to trip her down. She saw that coming with her Byakugan and jumped in the air. She did a flip and came back down with an axe kick. He rolled to the side and as she made impact with ground an indent was left. She did not let up, she rushed him and continues in their Kentajutsu battle. She was getting a few cuts, but no to say he was any better. As they were going at it she finally saw an opening. As he was going to strike at her horizontally she spun around his hand and hit him in his chest with her chakra-enhanced palm. She then spun again and hit him with her other hand, even though it was hurting badly. She continued her assault, never giving him a chance to recover. She was pushing him back to a specific spot. She jumped in the air and gave him a spin kick which sent him directly into a tree, cracking it. She dropped to her knees, the poison was working on her really fast. She had to get to Anko fast. The nin that was stuck in the tree pulled himself out. He was bleeding from his head and splinters were in his back. Half of his mask broke off showing his face. He looked to be in his early to mid-20s. He pulled off the other half and spit out blood. He got up from his position and went to charge her, but he was suddenly feeling dizzy. It was then he noticed he had a passenger on his shoulder. A slug, a big-ass slug to be more precise, and it was sucking his chakra at an unbelievably fast pace. By the time his mind caught up, which was in reality 2 seconds, he was already dry. He used his last remaining energy and threw his tanto at the Hyuga who was breathing hard on her knees. Hinata didn't have her Dijutsu activated, so she couldn't see the weapon aimed at her, but she did hear the swoosh sound it made in the wind. As she looked up and saw the weapon she took immediate action and dove left to safety. She didn't come out unharmed as the blade dug into her side, scraping her ribs. She screamed in pain. She didn't have water around to help wash off the blood or at least clean the injuries she sustains. The water she had made earlier was already sucked up by the earth. As she looked back at the nin she can see he was white as a ghost. His face not even showing 1 ounce of emotion. It was unsettling to Hinata. Her vision was fading fast, so she tried to push herself to her feet and get to Anko. As she made it to her feet she fell again, but this time someone was there to catch her. The last thing she saw was Anko's smiling face. "Bro, why does my chest and hand hurt so much?" A slightly dazed Hinata asked as she just woke up. As she looked around she can see what everywhere. Her first thought was a hospital, then her memory came rushing back to her. "This place makes me feel sicker, no wonder Naruto-kun doesn't like it here, it's antisocial," she thought. She looks behind her to the window and saw it was night or early in the morning, which she can't tell. As she turned back she saw Anko at the side of her bed in a chair sleeping, leaning on one hand snoring softly. Hinata giggled softly. It was a cute sight to see. As she contemplates on that, she realized that she was really thirsty. She pulled off her sheets to get out of bed and saw she was in a hospital gown. It made her wonder how long she was in the hospital. She also could feel medical gauze and tape around her midsection and right arms. She made 1 step and looked at Anko to see if she was awake and saw a pair of brown eyes looking at her amusingly. "What?" Hinata asked as she looked at Anko. "You know I usually sleep light, yet you try to sneak past me." A smiling Anko said, shaking her head. "Anyway, how are you feeling?" "My chest and ribs are hurting, but other than that I am good." Hinata answered after drinking some water from the small table nearby. "How long was I in the hospital?" Anko crossed her right leg over the other and sit back before answering. "Well, it has been about half a day and whole night. I am really surprised that you actually took on 2 Anbu level nin and come out with so few injuries." Hinata's left eye twitched. She stared at Anko incredulous. "Was I supposed to get more injuries or something?" Anko just shrugged. Hinata just got back into bed and made herself comfortable. As Anko looked on she was feeling a bit sleepy again. "You know Anko, if you want to join me, all you gotta do was ask." Anko just grinned and got up from her chair. She took off her new trench coat and re-stuffed it in the chair and climbed in with Hinata. She hugged her around the waist and rested her head between Hinata's breasts. Hinata didn't seem to mind. "What did you tell the doctors for the causes of my injuries?" "I told them we were sparing and I got carried away." "Why do you ask?" Anko asked looking up at Hinata. "But just that if they know the real reason, Naruto-kun knows and if he knows Hinata just left the rest to Anko's imagination." Realization hit Anko. If Naruto finds out then there is no saying what he will do and God knows with all the brains he have, he can still be brash about things. Anko hummed in acknowledgement. Then rest her head back down. "Good night Hina-chan." "Night Anko." Hinata kissed her on her head. Hina-chan, you still owe me a massage. Hinata twitched. It had been 6 weeks since Naruto and Yamato are in Kiri. Things have changed exponentially. They, along with the help of Mei and her forces, have laid waste to all of Yugura's fortresses around Kiri. Rescued a lot of prisoners even though some sacrifices were made, it did not go in vain. They were now gathered around the table discussing the news they have just received from the mole they had in Kiri. So what I can understand from this is that Yugura is mobilizing all his forces, asked Naruto, which he received a nod of head from Mei, and he is planning to attack us in 3 days' time, another shake head from Mei, and that's how long we have to prepare and set up traps and work out a battle-proof plan. Mei nod. Yes Naruto-kun, that's about it. I will have my best strategist get on it right away. By the time that happens I would like to know if you two have anything to contribute, she said, looking at both Yamato and him. The others around were paying clear attention to these two. They got to see a piece of what they are capable of, at which they were impressed, but something was telling them they have not seen anything yet. Naruto just looked at Yamato, then pushed his hand in his pocket and pulled out a kunai. Not any, but a 3-pronged kunai with an intricate seal written on the handle, then threw it on the table where it stuck. Yamato was speechless, he never knew Naruto had mastered his father's jutsu. It was not in his records, the Sandaime would have to hear about this later on. Mei was lost for words as well, she only heard legends about that kunai, the only place you can actually see one was in Konoha itself, which had a museum showcasing it, or in the textbooks they have at schools. To see it real life and better yet someone use the jutsu was a dream or once in a lifetime opportunity. The rain was falling very hard. The feeling of dread and uneasiness hangs in the air. It was so thick that it was almost palpable. The ominous feeling was there. You may ask why or what is the reason. Well, the reason is pretty simple actually. Today was the day that will decide the fate of the whole of Mizuno Kuni and in effect any bloodline users within said borders. The war was about to start any hour now. It was time to decide the fate of Kiri, a battle between bloodline rebels and Yugura and his forces. Naruto stared out into the rain. It was about after midday, and the place was dark as it can be, no sun, just rain and thunder clouds, and the place were mildly misty. It's like the heavens were crying for justice, but for whom? As he peered through the rain, as it was beating down on them, he was trying to see if the enemy has arrived. Looking back he saw Mei and her soldiers were right behind him as well as Yamato. He had asked to be the first one to start the war, and after some debate and persuasion he was granted the pleasure. He noticed most people were nervous, very nervous and shaky actually. He can't fault them, after all they are going to war with an army that have them at a disadvantage of 3 to 1. He stared back out in the rain deep in thought. You okay? You know you don't have to do this by yourself, right? Mei whispered behind him, the worry in her voice was clear as the rain to him. He smiled and inhaled deeply. Taking his time he answered, yes I know, but it's time to end this war once and for all. He turned back and smiled warmly at her. It was refreshing to know even though he volunteered to do this, there is someone who cared for his well-being and for him personally. And it would be selfish of me to not help a pretty damsel in distress. Mei smiled, it was one of the things she loved about him. Oh yes, Mei Terumi had fallen for Naruto Uzumaki. She was a mature woman after all, and she knew what she wanted in life, and she wanted to be with him, even though he has 2 girlfriends already. He knew when to be serious and when to be playful, and he can turn any bad situation into a good one, and this was one of that situations. And yes, Naruto knew Hinata had accepted Anko to be one of his future wives. Thank you, it was a whisper, but the sincerity in her voice was loud and clear. Naruto just nodded and turned back to face front. No need to thank me just yet, he then straightened up, his Kyuubi in hand senses picking up something in the far distance. How about after this war finish, you thank me over dinner? He channeled a little Kyuubi chakra through his body, not enough for people to notice or feel, but enough to have his vision and sense of smell improved. It was raining after all, and vision was hindered thanks to the mist in the area. He had on his normal clothes but without the mask. It was time for Uzumaki Naruto to be introduced to the world. And he couldn't showcase his other secret here. He turned his head sideways to Mei and grinned while his eyes glow a beautiful blue. She almost shivered by the act but held herself together. Besides, he continued, I did promise to end this war and I don't go back on my promises because that's my way and that's the way of the Uzumaki. Then clones appeared suddenly flanking the blonde sides, 5 on each. They are here Mei-chan, let's get ready because history will rewrite itself today. Mei turned back at Ao and give orders for everyone to prepare for battle. She was very nervous as to how his war will turn out and the possibility of something going horribly wrong with Naruto. She just took a deep breath and walks up behind Naruto and tapped him on his shoulder to get his attention. As he turned around she tiptoed as he was taller than her and grabbed his face and kissed him full on the lips. It lasted for about 5 seconds, but it got the point through. She pulled back. Please be careful Naruto-kun and come back to me and your girls. And she stepped back a few feet away from him. Naruto just nodded her and turned back in front. This would be the first time he fought in a war and the first time he used the Hiraishin in such large scale. He breathed, he hoped the upgrade he had given the kunais actually worked. He had worked extensively on them. His theory was that instead of having to flash to the kunai, he should be able to flash to the surrounding area around the kunai. It's like a sensor, as it makes impact with an object it sends out vibrations, which Naruto receives back due to the connection he has with the kunais, and as the vibrations go out, they paint a mental picture of the surroundings, and he can flash to anywhere he thinks about. The limit to the vibrations is about 5 meters, but he was currently working on increasing it. Naruto could see the first battalion, about 800 ninjas making their way across the landscape through the mist. They were completely oblivious as to what was to befall them shortly. Okay May, get your men ready and watch closely and don't blink because you will miss everything. He prepared a kunai. As he finished his sentence, the clones who were situated beside him, 15 feet apart from each other, threw their kunai through the air in an arch and ran through hand signs. Within 1 second they were done. Duten Kusho wind-style vacuum palm, a blast of wind fire out the clone's hand, and the kunais were sent flying into the air. As they were to reach the apex of their journey, the clones run through another hand signs kunai cage bunshin kunai shadow clone, and the 10 kunai multiply into 100 kunai each, which amounts them all to about 1000 kunais raining down on their enemy. The Kiri shinobi never prepared for this. 1 second they were running through the land quietly, the next kunai was raining down on them. The strange thing was that they never saw such bizarre weapons before. As one ninja picks it up, suddenly had a flashback about the last war which he had the pleasure of being in and coming out alive. The face immediately drained of color. "Koroi Senku," he shouted, but it was too late. He saw a flash of yellow and orange light and 10 ninjas drop dead. Head separate from their body. Many who were around heard him and completely lost it. They scattered, but it was no use. Naruto's upgraded kunai covered their getaway. It was a bloodbath. It was one of the most beautiful things May can't say she had seen in her entire life. To see the blonde lay waste to about 100 ninjas within seconds, it was just breathtaking. Not that she liked war, on the contrary, but it's either killed or be killed. As the other ninjas watch the light show, they can't help be lost for words. The display in the distance was like watching lightning disappear and appear at different intervals. Within a minute, Naruto had killed or knocked unconscious about 500 nins. Some more had already been killed by the shower of kunais. A man had been stupid enough to try to hit Naruto with a lightning dragon in the rain. Let's just say he and all the surrounding nins learned the hard way why water was a good conductor of electricity. Naruto disappear and appear in front a man, Rasengan in hand, plunging it into his stomach. As he flashes, he collects the real kunais and packs them back. When he stops, he took a look at the battlefield and had to whistle. What was 800 strong were now just under 150. All happened within a 5-minute period. Who weren't dead was unconscious. It was war, yes, but that doesn't mean that they all had to die. Some were here to protect their family or against their will. Not to say flashing from place to place was fun, hardly. It was disorienting, and it actually gives him a small headache, plus it took a chunk of his chakra. He looks back and saw May and her small army moving in on his position while checking on the dead and unconscious. The fresh set of memories from his clone he just received. While he was taking care of things here, they were out looking for Yugura, and by the looks of things he wasn't that far, about half a mile away on a hill looking at his ninja fall like bumbleflies. Naruto sensed more reinforcement coming to aid the Kirin, and he knew they would be taken care of, so he hurried away to Yugura's position. As Yugura think over his strategy and so forth, a flash appeared 20 feet away from him. He didn't even twitch since he already knew who it was. "So you are the one that was being a thorn in my side for the past month and something?" asked Yugura, not even taking his eyes off the battlefield. Naruto just run his hand through his hair before answering, "Yep, that would be me with the help of May and his soldiers," he replied. Yugura chuckled. "I have to say, I never thought I'd ever see that jutsu in my lifetime. It truly is remarkable, and to think he had a son too." Naruto didn't show any signs of alarm. It was quite obvious who his father was. How no one in Konoha knew he will never know. They stood there in silence for a few minutes until Yugura turned to Naruto's staff in hand. "Well, it was nice meeting you, and thanks for the pleasure of showing me that jutsu, but it is time for you to die. You have already caused enough problems for me as it is. So I will have to deal with you myself." HMPH, Naruto nod. "Yes, pleasure is mine. It was nice to meet a kage such as yourself. Said to have a high water affinity, second only to Tobirama Senju. The name's Naruto Uzumaki. I would ask you why you started all this bloodline farce, but you will tell me it was for the good of your country and stuff like that. I don't like people who take pleasure in killing others, so let's skip the chit-chat and get on with it. I have been away from my girls for far too long, and I don't like leaving them alone, even though they can take care of themselves." As Naruto prepares to fight, he can feel his fellow Jinchuriki chakra rising. So he put up a hand sign and releases his gravity seals. It is a cage he was facing, no need to hold back. He took off his hooded trench coat and set it aside. He was now wearing Anbu clothing and armor minus the guards on his hands and elbows. They would be a hindrance to his seals. As the two face off each other, they suddenly disappear in a blur and a resounding crash rang throughout the clearing. Mei had just finished melting some ninjas when she felt a huge amount of chakra being released. Her first thought was Yugura, and then she felt another one rising as well to match him, and then is when she realizes that Naruto had gone to fight him by himself. So, now he was facing a cage-level shinobi all alone. She turned back to Ao. Ao, I want you to gather some ninjas and check for any survivors and capture them. Naruto-kun is fighting Yugura alone, I have to go help him. And she was off. Yamato was right behind her, since he wanted to be there in case Naruto released the Kyuubi. As they reached, they saw a miniature Sanbi preparing a small black bowl above his head. Yamato saw this and paled, memories of the Kyuubi attack came rushing back. He immediately began running through hand signs. It might not be as big or as powerful as the one the Kyuubi did, but it can do a lot of damage. As Mei looked around, she saw Naruto picking himself up out of a crater. It looked as if he was arguing with himself. She then saw the Sanbi swallowed the bowl and open its mouth and shot a beam at him. She screamed his name and was about to run to his aid when she was blocked by wood. In the shape of an igloo house, this was covering over her. The last thing she saw was him raising his palm and saying something before the blast overtake him, and she was protected by wood. To be continued. What if Uzumaki clan leave his inheritance for Naruto? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.